Today, we're going to do my masterclass content course on how I made the cinematic videos that got me from 0 to 25K in 5 months on Instagram. And this includes my systems, frameworks, pretty much everything I've ever known about content. It was a part of my content college coaching business, but now that I'm moving more into creative direction, I don't want to be a course selling guru. It's just not something I want to be. But if instead of selling something, I give it away for free, that's charities. I know most people watching this won't actually watch all of the 2 hours, but for the people that do, everyone who has, I've found it extremely helpful and they've really seen some insane results with it. Be a part of that 1% that actually does watch all the way through. Really suck up the value I have in here because it's the exact way that I grew as fast as I did on social media and made some pretty cool videos along the way. These videos are a few months old, but nothing's outdated. I still use the exact same principles in all of my videos now and they still do quite well online. So yeah, enjoy it. It's all for you.
Welcome to Lesson 1 of Content College. I'm Jackson Sword. I built this entire course to be as in-depth as possible so you can go from start to finish as a new creator and know everything you would ever need to know about making high-quality videos that will actually get you a following. So anything you need to go from wanting to be a creator to actually ready to post your first video. I also wanted to make these videos very authentic to me so they're not scripted. It's just me and you talking and you learning everything that's in my brain about content and how I make the videos that led you here. Creating good content is not hard. There's just a bunch of little micro skills that we're going to walk you through in this course. It looks so expressive and creative. Once you know the formula, you can bend the formula, right? Throughout the entirety of the course, I'm going to have a ton of Notion templates for you guys to go through and work with. So you can kind of refer back to them without having to watch the entire video again. So Lesson 1, Module 1 is all about why do you want to be a creator? If you don't understand why you want to be a creator, it's going to be really hard to be authentic because you will not know where you're speaking from or who you're speaking to. We do this by finding our dream avatar, and this is the person that you're going to talk to through each of your videos. Every time you have a pain, dream, solution in your videos, it's going to adhere to this one person, and that creates that literally me connection. For example, the reason you're here is because my content has spoken to you in a way that feels very authentic and it's like I'm in your brain. And that's because we're probably very similar people. We're both content creators looking to make better content, right? And that is something that we can relate on even though we come from all these different backgrounds. And that's why social media is so powerful, because you can connect with people like yourself that you would never have known existed. When you're finding your why, you'll start with the Notion template because this really kind of breaks it down in I think the easiest way possible. So starting with profile, everything that makes you you specifically, right? So if there's any cultural aspects you want to include in your content, you know, any age demographics that you want to target directly, authority really doesn't have to come from I made $1 zillion this month from content. Like, you don't need to do any of that. There's been a giant meta shift in Instagram where there were so many people doing that. You probably saw them. You saw, you know, Andrew Tate be like, if you're not making 6 figures a day, you're missing out. That like oversaturated flexing really kind of pulled people away, and now it's more authentic storytelling. That connection is unbeatable, and in that connection is where you find your authority. So if you're like the person they connect to the most, they're going to trust you as more from a friend perspective, and that's why finding your why is so important, so that you can talk to that person and connect in the best way possible. Your dreams of health, like how healthy do you want to be? Your dreams of wealth, like where do you want to be financially? Your dreams of relationships, like what do you want to see in the future, platonic or romantic, right? And this is going to kind of give you an idea of your profile and self, and then you have your pains, like what's stopping you from doing those things? What are common things that you notice yourself facing that people would also face too? And these relatable pain points are going to be referenced so much in this course, you're going to get sick of me saying them. It really is the key to building an audience quickly, because if they're relating to your pain, they're relating to you, because everyone goes through pain, but also everyone goes through solutions, which is the next thing. So everything that you've done in your experience to take your dreams, the pain you face, and then get them to a new area where your solution is definite. And that's why we talk from experience rather than what we want. I've been talking with a lot of you recently. It's like, oh, like I want to use Instagram to scale a business. I want to use Instagram to grow an audience. You haven't done that yet, so it's really easy to want to talk from that place of authority. It's hard to be authentic on things you haven't done. So we want to go from where you are now and then document that journey to where you want to be. You'll build so much of an audience in that time. By the time you get to where you want to be, the authority will already be built for you. But the only way you can do that is by knowing why you're doing it. You know, it's like, I want to build a personal brand. Why? Mine is to help people just like you make better content, because I was so sick and tired of just seeing AI slop, and I thought it was the most disgusting forms of content I've ever seen. Like for me, I've been making content for 10 years. Like I have videos on my phone of when I was a little kid, like being dumb in front of the camera, and it's because I always knew that I liked doing this, like very, very much. And it was sad to me to see something like AI just kind of come in and muddle it up when there's so many authentic creators making fantastic content. That helps with finding yours and your IFPs, that's ideal follower profile. That helps you understand your messaging and the reason you're making content. It's like dreams are where you desperately want to be. Pains, problems are defined as something that people are too scared to admit. For me, my pain was like I was addicted to weed in college. I was so scared of becoming an adult, but once I faced it and went sober, everything got a lot better. An overarching narrative. And these narratives are something that you want to build so you can pull from them from specific videos. We'll just reference one of the largest creators, Mr. Beast, right? You know that he sat in his room for a very long time, studied content, dedicated everything, and now he's very successful, right? You kind of know that narrative, his story, of how he got there, and from what he's been referencing in podcasts and clips, and you kind of, it's built around him and into a part of his brand. So you know why you're making content, you know who you're making it for, a younger version of yourself. You have all your dreams, your pains, your solutions built out, but like, what are you going to make it about? This is where I want you to drop the idea of oversaturation, because it's not true, okay? Like, say I make a video with 10 million views. It goes absolutely viral. That 10 million views is a drop in the bucket of a drop in a larger bucket of a drop in a larger bucket. You have to kind of reframe your mindset. It's like, say you're really into the gym. There are a lot of gym accounts, but there's no gym account that's you. There's this idea of be the niche, and I semi-agree. I think you should be the niche, but also like pull from the niche as well. It's gonna be a lot easier to come up with ideas and stuff when we get into competitor analysis. I literally asked myself, I was like, what do I do day to day, and what can I get good at the fastest? So if my goal was to help people with content, it would make most sense to make content about content. Nothing's oversaturated because everyone's story is different. If you already have a business, I would recommend making content about the business. One, because it's going to drive business to your business, and then two, you're already doing that so much day to day. As a business owner myself, as someone with an offer, I know that there's a lot of work and a lot of story that goes into building that offer and getting my acumen. And to any entrepreneur, that's interesting, right? So you can be in your niche of business, say you run it like a med spa, you're still going to have entrepreneur people following you if your storytelling is good enough, because they're going to relate to the pain points of building a business, no matter what it is. And that's the same thing for any idea. New elements of yourself you can incorporate to these very wide and viral topics that I think people fail to overlook. And like, oh well, it's oversaturated, I shouldn't make videos. You should always make videos, because even if you don't know how to make videos, you know how to do the thing you're already doing, and then all you have to learn is how to make videos about the thing you're doing. You need to be consistent, and you need to do it for a long time. That's how you get better, and that's how you grow as a creator. So it's gonna be really hard for you to grow as a creator if you're doing something you don't like to do and you're not very good at it off the start. If you're having trouble deciding, we'll use me as an example. I was stuck between like content. I think I was considering the gym as well. What could I study for 24 hours straight without getting bored? Because that's what you're gonna have to do. You're gonna have to spend a lot of time like getting value for free resources, learning, interacting with people. Like, do I want to be a fitness coach? Do I want to be a content coach? Like, what is more engaging to me? What can I do for a longer time? Consider yourself in a room with 1,000 people, okay? There's like 500 people over here, 500 people over there. These people are gym, fitness people. These are content creators, right? Who would I want to go hang out with? This was not an overnight decision. I wasn't like, it took me a bit to understand where I wanted to be, but once I figured out that, it was so much easier to start making content, because I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I had my why, I knew why I was doing it, and then I had all my dreams, pains, and solutions, and the scripts just started to flow. The last part of figuring out what type of creator you want to be is your branding, because if you're building a personal brand or you're building a brand, you're going to need to have some brand recognizability. It kind of pisses me off. People talk a lot about branding, like to build a personal brand, you need 10 colors and these fonts. Have a font that's really easy to read, because you're thinking about this is going to be your captions, this is going to be the font they use forever. So a clean font, nothing too like, you can have like one really artistic expressive font and then one more cleaner, easy to read font. That's a thing a lot of people do, but like around 2 colors and 2 fonts. Now with color, I looked at what I already had. I had a lamp from Walmart that was orange, and then I had, my room was kind of like a bluish color, and I was like, okay, orange and blue, those are my colors. But looking back, I probably would have been a little more articulate. Colors do 2 things. They are like, make your videos a little more engaging depending on how neutral or contrasting are. You want them to be a little more contrasting. Your visuals are going to be a lot more dynamic, just like at a baseline. The sweatshirt, it's red, it sticks out, it pops, right? But it's contrasted against this green in the back, because they're contrasting color, but it looks nicer, it's more visually, and I'm centered, like I'm pulling you here just with my color. If you look here, you'll see all of the emotions that a color can bring. So when you're choosing to, maybe choose 2 contrasting emotions as well, so that when you're being emotional in your content, when you're being authentic, if you're talking about a low point, you can match it to a color. And that's really all that color is. Don't overthink it, okay? I'm only saying this once because I'm not going to repeat myself every single module. So once we reach the end of the module, like we are now, there will be a document kind of walking through all that I just talked about, links to any of the resources I talked about in the video, and then I will typically say something like, see you in the next one. Hey, welcome to module 2 of lesson 1, finding time for content. Now this is a big thing a lot of people struggle with. People are like, oh, like how do I batch my videos in advance, this and this and this. When you're first starting out with content, the goal is to start posting as much as possible, as consistently as possible. It's going to do 2 things. Instagram is going to match you with the right audience, so your videos are actually going to get views, engagement, and retention. Say you make a video about cars and it shows it to doctors, they're not going to care. You make a video about cars that's really, really good and they show it to a bunch of car enthusiasts, they're going to eat it up about a video, right? That's why we want to be relatable and specific. We'll kind of reference that audience matching throughout the entirety of the course. It's just so important on how to build an authentic audience in your niche. You're not going to be able to appeal to everyone. That's one thing you need to know. to find the time. Like when I first started out, I was very fortunate. I had 2 weeks free. I decided to go all in, just start posting every single day, really spending like hours and hours and hours on it. But for a lot of people who have jobs, 9 to 5, they're in college, I could go all hours in the night. It's gonna be really hard for you to find the time to make content, because at the start it's gonna take you longer because you haven't developed that skill set yet. So now we do this in a few ways. So one, it's understanding that content is a very long game, so you need to have a lot of time over a long period of time to get better at it and actually improve and get good. Because my first video is nothing compared to what the stuff I can put out now, because I've just been doing it for a longer time. And it's the same thing for you. Like you might have little bits of base skills, and I'm working on a series right now that kind of talks about like the content skill tree. You might be really good at scripting and writing, but you might be terrible at filming, so you're gonna have to spend your time and allocate it in different ways. And the way that I did it is through having tools. So there's two main tools that we use. One is Airtable, and then one is Notion. I spam Notion very, very much, and Jordan loves Airtable. They're very comparable in what they do. And Notion is where I host all of the free resources you see. It's where I have my content OS. It's just probably my favorite note-taking app of all time ever. One major tool, along with all the other things we have, is my Creator OS. And you see I have all these ideas listed out. I have the videos I'm working on, and then I have the ones that I'm filming, and then obviously the ones that are in editing. So what the content OS is, it is a system of organization. It basically takes your ideas and it helps you track them throughout the pipeline until they're posted. And being able to batch ahead of time is crucial, because if you're busy, like I said, you have a job or in college or something like that, it's going to give you room for delays, and life is going to happen. Because what I've noticed is that there's tons of distractions that keep you from making content. And if you can plan ahead of that and plan for those, you're going to have a lot easier time making them. And how we do this is by having a creation schedule. On the screen, I have my batching system. SFV, it stands for short form video. You plan out your entire week. There's a template for this in the Creator OS. It's a way for me to track production process on a more micro level. You can see which days you're going to do what, and this also allows for you to plan ahead of time so that you know like when you're going to be busy, and also you can work it into your schedule a little bit easier than just like, oh, I'll get around to it. But content needs to be priority, but you can make content a priority if you're not planning ahead of time, because of how just intensive it is at the start. But you look at when you're going to consume, when you're going to ideate, when you're going to script, film, edit, and scheduling. And that makes sure that you have all of your videos planned out a week or even 2 weeks in advance. Also, I know there's some creators that have like months planned out in advance, and that's just going to be so much more helpful than having to make videos like I do. In the past, I made videos like the day of, and that just gets like, you can't sustain that forever. Something is going to come up eventually. It's going to hinder your daily process, so being able to plan in advance can be so much more beneficial for you. So on Thursdays, I look at the trends of my current niche. We'll get more into this during the competitor analysis portion. It's very, very important, but for now, just know that it's a thing we're going to learn how to do. Once I watch a ton of videos I'll probably spend like an hour just watching the short form videos of my niche as I can, and then I kind of think of the big trends or ideas I see, and I find ways to inject them into my personal story, my personal experience, because that's what we want to do. We don't want to copy it all. We want to take inspiration and then use ourselves as the niche, like I was talking about earlier. This is a little bit older, so that I typically try to script in one day, just so I'm in like the writing mode. And filming takes a couple days, editing takes a couple days. All you need to know for this is find ways to work content into your schedule as much as possible. You see that? So those two tools are basically your go-to for finding time, but also it's a commitment thing. You have to be committed to getting better at content and learning how to do it. You're not going to get good overnight. I would say you could get good at content in 2 weeks. I think if anyone follows this course to a T, they could get really, really, really good at content in 2 weeks. That's how long it took me throwing myself at it. And I think with some direction, even if you're like from ground zero, if you follow the things in this course, you will be able to get good at content in 2 weeks, like good in quotes. Because for me, content is very subjective. Good content is a skill, and I think anyone can build that skill in 2 weeks. So with finding time for content, you're finding the time to give yourself that skill and development. It's like any other thing you'll ever do in your life. It just takes a little bit to get good at, and once you get good at it, you can reiterate and go through your reps and just get so much better, so much quicker. And I'll see you in the next one. Hey, welcome to module 3 of lesson 1. There's a spider going across here. This is profile optimization. People put a lot of emphasis on how important it is. This kind of goes into the audience matching thing. To have a viral video, you don't need to like adhere to SEO. I know tons of viral videos literally have captions that have no SEO, their bio has no SEO, and they get millions and millions of views. But just starting out, we want to give the algorithm the fastest way possible to take us and connect us to our niche so that we can actually start growing. Even if our family and friends are interacting, if they're not your ideal follower profile at IFP, it's gonna be really hard for Instagram to be like, who else do I push this out to? Like who's gonna interact with this video? Because the algorithm's goal is to keep people to stay on the app. And if your video is being pushed people who are like, this is boring, and they swipe away, that's why the video dies. So in order to help with that, we have an optimized profile, we have optimized SEO in our captions, which we'll get into later. This is how you like set yourself up for success. A bug hit me now. Instagram settings. There's not some magic toggle that's gonna make a video go viral. I wish there was. There's no need for me to walk you through this. They're very self-explanatory. This goes over it entirely, but you want to make sure you're showing up on Google search, that you're maximizing your photo quality. This This is really, really important for having 4K uploads. So even if you're filming on your phone like I do, you can still have a 4K look and feel, because people are like, you film on your phone? Yeah. The editing lesson will have a bit more on how to get that effect without having to buy a very expensive camera. You will make sure you have a professional account, either be creator or business. If you're a business actually selling stuff on the platform of Instagram, like through the shop, I would go with business. It's the only way you unlock insights, analytics, and your growth tools. This is a mandatory setting for anyone who actually wants to grow, because if you're not, you're a personal account. Instagram doesn't push out personal accounts. And then you want to make sure you're cross-posting your reels to Facebook. So you basically want to set up a Facebook account and make sure this is toggled on. So you have a very, very viral reel on Instagram that has a very high likelihood of going viral on Facebook, and you can double your views for doing no extra work, which is perfect. And then selecting your category. This is again helping with the audience matching. Turning on trial reels will really help you boost and get you a lot of followers. So with turning on trial reels, it's sometimes a waiting game. Like I literally called Meta. There's a wasp. I was on the phone with the Meta representative. I was like, is there anything you can do to turn my trial reels on? Like, been doing all this stuff. I hit 1,000 followers. Like, what do I have to do? And they're like, oh, it's random. I was like, okay. So I found this link later that turned them on for me. It was like one of the best days I've had as a creator, because I was like, finally, I can get my stuff out. And that's when I started really growing, because I was able to post content I already made that has done well on other platforms. That's how I kind of sped up the audience matching process. Eventually, trial reels will be released to everyone. They are coming. Just for now, focus on becoming a really, really good creator, so that when trial reels come, you can just slam some videos and do really, really well. And then ManyChat, this is something that Jordan will go over a little bit later. I would say the biggest thing for this is it's super easy to set up, and that's just whenever I say comment blank, that's ManyChat working. One thing that has been really beneficial for me is making my ManyChat authentic. I even made a video about it. When you're doing any form of sales, even if it's the selling of following your account, you want it to be very authentic and not forced, and like it's their idea. To do that in the best way possible, you want to have your ManyChat sound like you. So when you're typing any free resource or anything like that, use your own verbiage. Don't make it sound like a robot. Make it sound like they're talking to you, and it's gonna be so much better because you're not. Thank you for liking. You know, just be yourself through the text, like you're texting a best friend, and they're going to feel so much more connected to you, and they'll have the higher likelihood of following. I have a free template that has my call out strategy. Here's a free resources. I spent 12 hours on this video. Is there any way that you would follow me, because I spent so long and I really appreciate it, right? And what the condition does is it checks to see if they're following. So when I ask for that following, if they lie, I literally have a call. It's like, you're a liar. Kind of in like a joking, funny tone, but it's gotten so many people to actually follow me because they're not even thinking, they think I'm not even going to check, but I do. And that check kind of snaps me out of the automation. It's like, oh, this guy's like kind of funny, whatever. And then that has gotten me like thousands of followers just from the automation. The goal as any new creator who's under 10K is to get to 10K as fast as possible, because that's where your authority, and it kind of starts snowballing. It's like, oh, this person has 10K, I'll follow that. It's psychology, just basic human group mindset. Like, it's easier to follow someone who's already being followed. This is all I'm going to talk about with profile picture. It's just a profile picture. A selfie is perfectly fine. A nice picture of your face, a picture that you like of yourself, someone a picture took of you. Just make sure your face is clear, that when they see your profile, they can kind of see what you look like at a quick glance. Refrain from the typical face with like a white or like plain background or something, or whatever color. There has been a fatigue, like I talked about in the other module. When you see that profile picture, you automatically assume they're trying to sell you something, and no one likes being sold to. Now for the bio, I use the term woven SEO a lot, and it's something you want to take into your scripting, your captioning, everything like that. It's helping the algorithm audience match without being like creator, content, because that kind of gets robotic. The less salesy your Instagram page looks, the better. Whatever you can do to make your profile seem authentic at a glance is going to have a higher likelihood of people following you, because you're going to feel like they're following a friend rather than a salesman or a saleswoman. Line 1 is who you're helping, what your goal is. Mine is helping creators grow authentic brands with cinematic stories. That's what I'm doing. It's what I'm doing. But then we have the keywords, the woven SEO of creators, authentic brands, cinematic, and story. And that SEO is being taken into account, and that's how my audience helps get matched. Then second line is going to be any social proof about you. If you don't have any social proof at the start, that's completely fine. There's always some semblance of social proof you can have with whatever niche you're in, even if it's in a personal accomplishment. I've seen some people do like 10K in 90 days, something like that, because everyone has accomplishments. You've probably done something pretty impressive. Have the social proof be authority in some regard. It doesn't have to be directly related to your niche, but the closer it is to your niche, the better. I didn't have any social proof until I started this community, and was able to help a bunch of people, which I was really, really happy about. And that's why I can say 200 plus clients, because I've had 200 plus clients. Do not lie. Please. If you lie, someone's gonna ask you to back it up. When you can't, it's gonna look really, really bad. I would say lines 1 and 2 are the most important, and then line 3, the call to action, can really be anything. It can be a free resource, it can be just like your email, get in touch with me, something like that. I didn't have a call to action for a really long time. The last thing is having a clean username. In the content space, there are so many usernames that are like, when you're picking your username, first things you should try to do, is your full name available? I'll put it up. There is just some random person who hasn't posted in a really long time named Jackson Sword who has the username. I would never be able to get it, unfortunately. That's what I wanted. The closest to me was like, oh, by Jackson Jackson Sword. I'm making videos, cinematic. It's by me. Your username just has to incorporate hopefully some element of your name. Cleaner is better. I would refrain from any sort of numbers. If you get like a clean username and then like buy the verified mark for like $1 a month, you look pretty professional. Like I notice myself whenever I get a new follower and they have like that formula of like clean username plus checkmark, I'm like, oh, like how many followers do they have? I would say being verified is worth it because it's going to give you a little more social proof off the bat. And that is the end of module 3. Hey, welcome to module 4 of lesson 1. The camera did not die outside and that did not lose an hour of footage. That didn't happen. That's why that background is so getting into expectations. So not to sound harsh, but you are not going to go viral overnight. If you do, that'd be fantastic. We would all celebrate you in the community. But the odds are it's going to take you a while to build up the skill of content in order to consistently go viral. Because virality is a skill. There is an element of luck that we'll get into later. But for the most part, there are little micro skills that I've been mentioning this entire lesson, which are like the real reasons that people can go consistently viral. Like people like Mr. Beast are not just guessing. Like they obviously have some semblance of a formula, and that's what this course is going to teach you, and how to do that in your own way that's unique and authentic to you. In order to understand how to go viral, we need to understand how to grow. We need to understand why we're losing followers. We need to understand the expectations that we're setting for ourselves, hence the name. When you're first starting out content, you need to post enough where you're not caring about the numbers. For me, that was just posting every single day and trying to put my phone away as soon as I posted so I wouldn't be constantly refreshing. Like it's really easy to fall into that habit of watching the follower count go up, trying to see if a video is going viral, but that can actually harm the performance of a video because their AI checks how frequently after posting you check your video, and that actually has an impact on the performance and the reach of the video. If you need a second motivation to not check your phone after posting, that is a great one. By checking, you don't want to harm your chances of having a viral video, having a very successful video. So if you're losing followers, you need to understand why you're losing followers in order to kind of readjust that one aspect, because typically it's not everything you're doing. Throughout this course, you're going to understand how to tell your story and how to become the niche as a creator. Obviously, that means you're sitting within a niche, but there's an element of you that is separating you from your competitors. So if you change the niche, say you were just posting valuable content about gym and you never mentioned yourself and you had a following of 1,000 people, those 1,000 people are following you because you have good advice about the gym and not necessarily because you are you. So if you change the niche by, injecting some element of storytelling, and this kind of bleeds into number 2, like, is your strategy changing? And that could be, instead of making just valuable content, making valuable storytelling content. And you might lose some followers because of that, because they were here for one thing and now they're getting another. But the horizon and the plethora of more followers you can get from making this switch is so worth losing a couple followers when you can, have such a more exponential growth pattern. So say you went from 1,000, you're back down to 800, and you start posting more storytelling content, but you're not really seeing any major shift. You're kind of plateauing. This may be a variety problem. There is a formula to viral content, but once you know all the micro skills that we'll cover in this course, you can bend the formula to your will to get a really nice variety of content. Like all my videos are technically storytelling. I follow a very formulaic scripting template, but because I have all these skills that I do now, I'm able to kind of bend that, and each of my videos feels unique and separate. Like my content feels like a Jackson Sword video, but not every single video is just, oh, like I've already seen this. You want to be unique and you want to keep innovating and improving with every single rep. And we'll get more to that in a second. So if you're having very formulaic content, your followers, they're gonna be like, oh, like I've already seen this video before from him, like I'm not gonna interact. So that's why we want to make sure we're injecting different stories, we're being as vulnerable as possible so that the variety of our content seems so wide, even if we're in one niche. And this kind of leads to number 4. If you're not posting content that has any semblance of you in it, it's gonna be really hard for people to follow you. Like I mentioned before, there's nothing connecting you to the video. Even if you have a viral video at that stage, there's no reason for them to follow you because they're there for the information, but they're not there for you. So that kind of gets us into how to grow. And in the first recording that totally wasn't deleted, I came up with the analogy of treating content like a full-time job until it becomes one. Is normally a financial reason, and that's nothing to be ashamed of. Like the reason that I make content is that so I can get paid and do my dream job of helping people make better content. What I mean to say is, think of when you're starting out, you're an intern. You are not getting paid, you're very inexperienced, and you kind of have to climb the ladder of content. That means you're going up the departments of learning filmmaking, storytelling, scripting, and then once you kind of get up there, you get the promotion or any financial incentives of being at the top of your game. But when you're first starting out, it's okay to acknowledge that you're new and you're a beginner, and even documenting that story, that process of getting better, people will follow you for. On both sides, you can use that to your advantage. Obviously, at the CEO, you're gonna have a lot more authority, but when you're at the intern, you're gonna be relating to so many other new creators, and you can build such good foundations that way. How to grow. So step 1 is posting consistent value to a dream avatar. This can be over a month, this can be over a year. The longer you do it, the higher chance of success. Like I've been shoving down your throat, content is a long game. The goal is to go viral overnight. Reality is that it's going to take a few months, it's going to take a few years, and that's okay, because in that time your skill set will be so vast in content that any video you want to make will be possible, and that creative freedom is really where unique ideas, viral ideas lie. And consistent value, you have to kind of redefine what value is. Typically, people think of value as like call to action, like the free resource, but you can give value through emotion. If the video is humorous, you can make them laugh. If the video is motivational, you can get them really amped up. With story, just walking them through your experience, don't do what I did kind of thing. And obviously the actionable info you get is going to be valuable. If you can stack that value across every like single line of your script, the video will be so immensely valuable that it will be hard for it not to get shared, sent to people. And that's how we go viral. And like I've been slamming for the entire duration of this lesson, is that the goal for all this is audience matching. We get audience matching, and it's going to continue into scripting and everything, because it's such a core part of getting your video in front of the right audience, you know, because nothing is oversaturated, but you want to be in the right saturated market. So if our goal is audience matching, we want to make sure that our dream avatar is what we want our audience to be, because if you can speak to one person, you can speak to a bunch of people, and that's the audience that we're getting matched with. That's why we have woven SEO in our bio. It's why we have it in our captions. If you're posting consistent value to one dream avatar that's actually valuable in all the ways I described, they're going to follow you, and that's going to snowball, and you're going to see growth just on a level you couldn't even imagine. So step 2 is parasocial relationship building. Why would you want to have a parasocial relationship? For a long time, it was seen as like bad or taboo. It's like, oh, like we're not your friends and this and that. Kind of argue against it. I would love to be each of my followers' friends because of how authentic I am in my content. That means people who follow me are typically pretty similar to me in some way. Probably the reason you're here because you feel in a way that we have spoken, and that's kind of goes into like, how do we get that parasocial relationship? When I first started out, I understood that engagement on the videos was the most important thing. Engagement in the first hour is something you really want to drive. So whenever I got a comment, I would reply to them with a thank you and just be so appreciative that they took the time out of their day to comment on the video they saw. That typically signals that the video is pretty good if they're like, wow, this is a great video. And then 2, if it was like, wow, keep up the good work, you can be really genuine and be like, thank you so much, I really appreciate this. And if they didn't follow you before, you reaching out and talking to them is going to make them feel like they know you, and the odds that they follow you are a lot greater. And then people who go into the comments and see they're responding might have a more incentive to respond. So kind of like that snowball effect. And then it's the same thing when people reach out to you in your DMs, you're going to want to respond to as much of them as possible. Obviously not the weird ones that you get, because you will get them. Because sometimes I would have like a really bad day with content. I would just go and like read my DMs to feel better. Oh man, like your stuff is so incredible. I'm going to see you at 50K in like 2 months. I'm like, wow man, like that's, you believe in me more than I do. And I just like sent a quick voice memo, and then he followed me. It was just such a kind of like wholesome experience, like really connecting with some great people online, and having like a quick call or even a voice memo is going to have such more of a personal implication, and that's going to lead cult-like following that we're chasing. Because with audience trust, you can't buy that. You can buy followers, but you can never ever build audience trust, and that is something so valuable to any creator. This kind of goes into a story that this is the first time I'm telling it today, obviously. But I met Phoebe Gates through my ManyChat. This is why authentic ManyChat is so important. What I mentioned last time with having the authentic ManyChat that calls people out, I'm kind of a snarky person, so that kind of like poking fun got the attention of Phoebe Gates' co-founder on the brand Fia. I thought it was so funny that she invited me to their HQ to do a video, and that's just off ManyChat. I had no personal interaction with her, but she thought my ManyChat was engaging enough that she wanted to meet me in person. And that kind of shows the power of, if you write your ManyChat in a way that feels like people are talking to you, when they do go to talk to you in person, it's like you've already got rid of the awkward formalities, because the ManyChat robot has done its job pretty well. And on the topic of that, you're going to meet so many cool people through content that you didn't even know existed. And one thing that helps with this is like content minutes. It's this idea of, say you watched all my content for like an hour straight, because I think it's probably have like 60 videos or each a minute. So like, say you watched all my content, you would have a pretty good idea of who I am, and that's because I do authentic storytelling content. And that's what we want. Like, the more time that people spend with you online, the more they feel like they know you, and the more they have that like trust in you because they've gotten to know you. It's the same thing that if you were to bump into a random stranger and talk to them for an hour, you would trust that person more than any other random stranger you met that day, because you talked to the person for an hour. The idea of content minutes is obviously easier with long form. Instead of having to make 61-minute videos, you make 3 20-minute videos, but short form is the fastest that you can grow and get better. And step 3 is how to not fail. If you genuinely stick to steps 1 and 2, for like a year straight, you would go viral. I'm convinced, no matter what. If you posted 365 videos that are quality, you will grow so insanely fast that you don't even know what to do. But a lot of people kind of get burnt out, and that's kind of goes back into my job analogy. You wouldn't want to let your like boss down, but in this sense, your boss is you, so it's a lot easier to let yourself down because all you're disappointing is one person. That's why it's really helpful to have accountability partners, people you're growing with, people that are checking up on you. I did not want to record this a second time, not at all. It really pissed me off, but I'm like, I need to get this video done, and it's something I have to do, and that's just like the mentality you have to have. The reason that not everyone goes viral is because they quit. There's some creators that are probably better than Mr. Beast that just stopped because they didn't have the nerve to get past those days where it sucks so bad. And that's the kind of the second thing of investing time, because the more time you're investing on the forefront, the easier it will be to make better content faster. And the faster you can make better content, the less time you have to spend making content, so you can give yourself the much needed breaks. So when I first started, I was fortunate enough to have like 2 weeks free where I could just go all in on content and do what I'm talking about, of just letting it consume every waking thought, of learning as much as I could as fast as I could, so I could really improve and start to actually grow a following. A lot of us are in college, a lot of us have 9-to-5 jobs, and it's harder to just, put everything aside, put family aside, friends aside, and like lock yourself in a room and really break down the fundamentals of content, right? What I would recommend is anyone starting out who really wants to take this seriously, really wants to make this their full-time thing, the best thing you can do for yourself is, instead of fitting content into your schedule, is building your schedule around content. So like for me, I would wake up at 6 a.m. every day. I would go to the gym, I would script, film, edit, post, and then I would just get ready to do it again the next day. There's sometimes I was editing to like 1 a.m. It was worth it because I knew it was for a older version of me, even 2 months older, that would be where I am right now. And I would appreciate all the hard work that past Jackson has done, and the future Jackson's going to appreciate all the work that I'm doing now. And that's like the corporate ladder of my mind in doing this. So because I really truly believe that you can get good at content in 2 weeks if you really post every single day and spend 12 hours a day for 2 weeks making content. That's 168 hours of content creation under your belt. In 150 hours plus of anything, you're going to be better than the average person at it, because that average person is not going to take the dedication and time that you did to understand the fundamentals of this skill. That's why I have this course, is to hopefully like walk you along, like hold your hand in the way that I wish I had, and make those 2 weeks even more efficient. And then step 3, without a not fail, is improve with every single video. I'm here to make your transformation from like level 0 creator to level 1 billion creator as seamless and fast as possible. But the best way you can help me do that is with every single video, be so harsh on yourself that if you get like a hate comment or something, it doesn't even matter to you because of how much you've picked apart the videos. Like even now, I'll make a video and I'll hate it as soon as I post it. And that's okay. That's because I want the next videos to be better. There's little parts that I notice that I don't like, and typically the only one that's going to notice them. But for the most part, if you can rip yourself apart and really break down why you don't like a video or why you think a video is weaker than another, that little skill, the skill of critiquing your own content and therefore critiquing other people's content, you'll kind of get, like I talked about earlier, that like eye for content. And that's how you consistently make better videos. This kind of goes into more like productivity, like grind set lifestyle. But there is something to it. If you're, not eating healthy, not taking care of yourself, not getting enough sleep, it's going to be really, really hard for you to consistently post content. But as I was saying before, I was interrupted by the camera dying. If you're not being consistent in your lifestyle, you will never be consistent in your content. It's the unfortunate truth. There's no shortcut. There's no productivity hack you can do. Like, you need to be living your life around content, at least in the starting phases. There is a balance eventually. My mindset was, if I'm not going to post this video today, someone else will. And because of how competitive the field is, you need to be just one step above. You need to kind of really give yourself that edge. And the best way to do that is by doing what others don't. And that's, just being so utterly consistent that it's just like people are confused on how you keep doing it. There's a million thousand books on productivity or self-help, but just find what works for you. Find what keeps you consistent. Find what keeps you focused. Don't work in distracting environments. Just everything you can do to give yourself the best chance of success in a content way, but also in general life. Like, you'll feel a lot better if you live healthier. That's the end of lesson 1. It did not take 4 or 5 hours to film because the camera did not die and it did not overheat and nothing bad happened. I will see you in lesson 2 when we start talking about ideation. We're going to lesson 2, module 1, competitor analysis. What we covered in the first lesson was all the foundational things you need to know before you do this. But competitor analysis is one of the most important steps of content. If you're able to spot good content and understand why it's good and then replicate it in your own way, your chances of seeing that success that other creators do is because of this. Creators who seem to be so flawless at content, who know how to do all the best storytelling techniques, who seem to always have the best hooks. What large creators do, what I've started to do, is kind of pick and take parts of the best content I see, rework it into my own way. And the results have been crazy because I'm already using proven frameworks that have performed well in other niches. And then once they're applied to my niche, they perform the same. And there's a quote, good artists take inspiration, but great artists steal. And that's true with content as well. But luckily for you, I have a Notion document that helps break down all of competitor analysis and how to do it correctly in order to get the most benefit out of it. If you remember from the batching content lesson, there was a section for competitor analysis, or like consumption, and this is how I do that, breaking down each aspect in a second. But I first want you to understand the fundamental idea of like piggybacking. What that means is you're not copying good content because that's lame and you shouldn't do it, but you're piggybacking, which means, taking the little pieces like I mentioned and turning them into your own video. First, we find a creator that we like that's in our niche who is making just fantastic content, and we look at their outliers. That means 5 to 10 the average average view count. We then identify the weak points of those videos. Cool thing about content is that every video can always be improved in some way. Sure, there's some videos that are close to perfect, but there's still something that you can inject from your own unique experience. That take is going to be valuable to typically your audience, and that's how you take someone else's viral video and transform it into something that works for you and is new, unique, but also has this type of essence. Typically, I'll look at a video, think about 4 to 5 things I could do better. Either that's, better storytelling, better editing, how's their pacing, things like that. And we're about to get into like the actual list I use. Then I take inspiration from it. So I'll look at, the hook, the value, how it was delivered, and then I'll fix the 4 or 5 weak points, add my own style, add my own story, and that's a new video just on a similar topic, which is okay because people are already making videos on similar topics to you without you knowing. So this is just kind of seeing which topics are the most worthwhile and in-depth to go into. And if you're able to provide new value to that topic, you typically create an outlier yourself. So what do I even look for when I'm doing competitor analysis? So this is my content competitor analysis. It's literally the exact one I use. It will be included below. First, I look at the topic of the video. What was their idea and what were they trying to convey? Is it niche or broad? Is it a hot take, controversial? Or like, is it safe, more plain, like kind of both sides? And this is very important because the tonality of the hook and the pacing of the hook is all dependent on this. If it's a very hot take, it's probably gonna be a little bit quicker, more aggressive. If it's controversial, it'll be like, I don't know who needs to hear this, something like that. Or is it safe? This kind of falls into the realm of storytelling. Like, is it possible? More following your own story so you know that it's really not going to press anyone's buttons on purpose. And then next is the hook. What is the exact phrasing they use? Say if I looked at my video, which I have the analysis of here, the hook, is it possible to get good at editing in 24 hours? With my research, it's okay to copy a hook format with storytelling content because you're doing storytelling content where you have to inject personal elements within each hook anyways. You can't really ever copy verbatim what they're saying, which I wouldn't recommend you do because their video is not going to perform well on your account. But if you were to copy this video, you could be like, is it possible to get good at editing even though you've never edited before? Something like that, because at least you're going to have to change it in some way to make it personal to you, and that's how you get inspired instead of copy. And also you have to think of these shots. What shots do they use? How is it paced? Is the music fast? And consider every single element of the hook so that when you're going to like recreate it in your own image, you understand the principles of what made that hook so engaging and why people stuck around past the 3-second mark. Now the pacing is the same thing. Is the entire video fast? Is it slow? Does it go up and down? Like, you want to take competitor analysis, yes, from outliers, but also from creators who are doing the type of content you want to do. So even if it's not their most viral video, that style is okay to take inspiration from. Like, every single artist you have ever seen has learned from some other artist, and that's how I kind of want you to approach content and think about content. You need to be able to come up with quality ideas over and over and over again. And the best way to post every day and have good ideas all the time is to take inspiration from other places. Obviously make your own videos, obviously tell your own story, and then standout shots. This is any unique shot you see, something that kind of sticks out or is very eye-catching. They're typically towards the start or like scattered throughout the video. Really any visual effect that keeps the viewer engaged that you think you could recreate in your own way. Background music, how often they're changing, what's the tone, just kind of general. We'll get more into this in kind of the editing and understanding the fundamentals of how to edit engaging videos. Captions, subtitles, where are they? Are they up here? Are they down here? What I've noticed recently is that the middle is typically where they are. It's very beneficial for retention. What's the color of them? Are they animated? Are they sliding in? Are they fading in? Like, what is unique about the captions, or what role did the captions play in making the video do as well as it did? Speech, are they speaking at a really high pitch? Are they speaking at a really low pitch? What is their tonality? Are they having a lot of emotion behind the words? Are they more monotone? Really dissecting how they do a voiceover, if any. Purpose, like, what are they trying to accomplish with the piece of content they created? Like, what is their authentic reason? What is their why? If you can understand someone's why, it's gonna be a lot easier to dissect their content because you're not guessing their motives. We hear that? And the editing, just general, that's kind of all the parts we talked about, but there's anything in particular they're doing with B-roll and stuff like that. Schedule how, like, look at the cadence of when they're posting around the time the video went viral. Was it every single day? Was it like a random one they posted? Look how luck played a role, because typically if you're posting consistently, you have a higher chance of your videos getting pushed out to a larger audience because Instagram's like, oh, they're a consistent creator. But a good video is a good video. That's what I tell everyone. If you make a viral video, that video is viral. And then value delivery, what do people get out of it? Is there call to action? Is there free resource? Is the video itself innately valuable? And then what's the CTA? Is it follow? Is it comment? What action did the video take that got it so much engagement to make it go viral? And this is how I would dissect my video. You can pause the video and kind of read what I wrote. And then through this example, to find like 4 to 5 weaknesses, look at what you could do better or that you could change. So that was competitor analysis. I will see you in module 2. Hey, welcome to lesson 2, module 2. This is how to ideate. I touched on this in the competitor analysis video. When you're posting every day, you want to have good ideas so that the content you're making every day is worthwhile. Obviously, you're going to want to build a personal brand, and if you're only doing competitor analysis and piggybacking, you'll never have unique ideas and be able to experiment and kind of stretch that muscle. Coming up with good ideas is such an important part of content, because while being able to look at outliers and understand why they went viral is good, once you get the understanding, if you can apply them to your own ideas and be able to tell your own story in your way, then people copy you, become more of a thought leader than a thought follower. And obviously, I have a Notion template, of course, on how to ideate. I think this was one of my first videos because I was really struggling with this. I'm asked very frequently how I come up with ideas, and it's literally this method I'm about to break down. So if one's competitor analysis, 2 is I'm making content daily and I make content about content, so it's pretty easy to tell that story. And then 3, when I want a specific idea, I kind of think of it this way. The first approach is the niching down approach. So it's like, what are you creating for specifically? And that's just taking a really broad idea and making it unique enough. And obviously the hook would be very broad and bring it into that uniqueness, but it's really easy to build story and structure around unique and specific ideas because every story is unique and specific. Credibility. So say you have a personal experience or you're just starting out, you're not going to have a lot of authority. And the best way to have value is when it comes from a credible source. So if you're an expert, you say, I am. If you're curating, it'd be like according to the expert, or if it's a personal experience, which is what mainly we'll be doing, it's I have blank. And then 4 I pass, that is an actionable, analytical, aspirational, anthropological. I nailed that. Wow. So actionable is like, here's how to do blank. Analytical, here's the numbers on why blank works. Aspirational, yes, you can do blank even if you're blank. Anthropological, here's why blank works instead of blank. So say you have like a broad idea, this is a really good way to kind of understand how to break it down. And even if this is used for the takeaway part of the video, it's still gonna be very beneficial. And then the 11 approaches, I use this one probably the most. So say you have one idea, you could be like, how I filmed a content course, lessons learned from filming a content course, mistakes I made during the content course, being outside and letting the camera die and then having to wait an hour for it to charge again. During my content break, I took a nap on a bench outside and it really hurts. These things help you kind of break down and dissect the idea so you can kind of take them and use those specific parts of any idea and walk someone through the steps. Because the more you can lay things out in a sequential order that's easy to follow, the more valuable the video will feel. Fast filter, and that's, is it viral, actionable, specific, timeless, and topical? When you're trying to be, is my hair looking a little bit silly? When is it not, right? We'll fix it the next one. The first part of the filter is like the theory of virality. We'll get more into this in the next module, but it's kind of understanding why people share things and how to make your video shareable while not feeling mass produced. And then actionable, what behavior response does this video elicit after watching the video? Is it a follow? Is it a share? Like, what are we trying to get them to do? Is it specific? So is it in your niche, and is it going to help people in your niche? You want a very broad hook and then kind of siphon people down throughout the video so that the people that are making to the end, following and engaging, are your IFP. And then is it timeless and topical? I really wouldn't recommend following trends because they're going to go away eventually. Can you tell my hair is bugging me? Instagram pushes videos out for a lot longer than other platforms. Dude, what is it doing? Instagram pushes the video out for a lot longer than other platforms. The module 2, I went over that video that was at 60K like 2 weeks ago, but now it's at 100. So it's gained 40K views in over 2 weeks, and I posted it months ago. And there's one more method of ideation I'd really touch on, and that would be pain points, because pain points are some of the strongest ideas. Everyone experiences them. For example, if you've ever used a camera, you know it's going to be annoying in some way. We're using today as an example. I could have a pain point of, wow, my camera died. That was really, really frustrating. My computer was dying as well. Everything was overheating, and it was a miserable experience. And then what story goes with it is just the story of how I reached that pain point. That's what a lot of people struggle with, is like, I have like these ideas for videos, but it's hard to tell stories around them. So if you start with the pain point that came from a story, you can just tell the story of how you reached the pain point, and then whatever I did for the solution, which was go take a nap and wait for the camera to charge. And then of course, like, you want a little more valuable information, like maybe tips on how to keep your camera cool or whatever. Is that information valuable? And then how can I make it massively related? How, even if someone doesn't have a camera, their phone, or what can I do to get this to the widest audience possible while not losing the core concept? And I will see you in module 3, where we'll actually understand viral content, as I kind of hinted on this module. Welcome to lesson 2, module 3. This is the final module of this lesson. This will be brief, but really, really, really important. Everyone kind of throws around the word like, this is a viral video, this can make you go viral, this is gonna make you go viral, but no one ever breaks down what viral is. There's no quantifiable way to understand if a video is going viral. And I had to do like a lot of digging for this, but one giant part of it is share rate. Because if you make a video, 3% of the people that see that video share it, has a really high likelihood of going viral, because the algorithm's like, oh, this video is going everywhere. And share rate equals total shares divided by total views. So for an example, say you had a video with 1,000 views and 30 people shared it. The video has a high chance of going viral because you have a share rate of over 3%. A lot of my most viral videos have thousands of shares because people are sending them for a multitude of reasons, and that kind of goes back to value. So is it the storytelling? Is it the editing? Is it the value? And that's why we do competitor analysis. That's why we pull ideas from there, because then we can get a better understanding faster of what it is that we're doing in order to push the share goal. Because shares, likes, comments, all that engagement is what Instagram wants. They also want a lot of quality watch time, and typically people are watching the entire video before they send it to their friend. So it's a really good indicator that people are watching your video and being like, wow, this is really cool. We just went over all the ways I ideate, and now it's like, how do I make those shareable? Like, how do I make a personal experiment shareable? Like, who cares about me? And it's kind of, I think, where a lot of people get stuck. Like, how do I make storytelling videos shareable? Like, it's just me. So there's two ways to get shared. Your idea has to be first to market with a common idea or a completely uncommon idea. And I would recommend the second. Best is uncommon idea plus large audience, and that equals more shares. So say you do a competitor analysis and you see a common idea of like hooks. Everyone has seen like steal these viral hooks. You'd want to make the idea of hooks uncommon. So how would you do that if you're doing storytelling videos, right? So you take the common idea of hooks, you bring it here. I'm a very hands talker if you haven't noticed already. So you have your common idea here and the things that make it uncommon, and that's why the piggyback method is so important, because we're taking our story, that's a little bit more uncommon. You're taking your unique take, a little more uncommon, and you're taking all the things that of your style, your editing, your pacing, all this, and now it's a very uncommon idea, but that idea still appeals to a large audience of people who need to know how to do good hooks. But now it's uncommon because you added all your things. And then the unfortunate fourth step is luck. This is my most viewed video, right? When I first posted it, guess how many views it got? 900 views. Did not even break 1,000. Does that mean that video was bad? No. It just means I got unlucky, started reposted as a trial reel, and now it has been my most viewed, most viral video, etc., etc. And if you're posting videos that aren't doing well, just repost them. If you have 100 followers and one video you post gets like 10 views, just repost it at like peak time. That's okay. And the way I think about it is that if the goal is to go viral, your something thousand followers are not going to compare at all to the millions of new people that are going to see it. Even if everything else is right, you can still be stuck at 900 views. You completed lesson 2 on ideation. I will see you in lesson 3. Hey, welcome to lesson 3. Hooks are how we get people watching past 3 seconds, and then the scripts are how we kind of continue to pull them to the end of the video where we want them to be. One thing I like to do, and like one thing I recommend you do as a content creator in order to improve rapidly, is write down all of your knowledge on one part of content. It's basically breaking down your comprehension on any certain topic, and the topic I chose to break down for the day was hooks. So this is my hook book. It's basically a comprehensive breakdown of everything I know about hooks. So I kind of break it down into chapters just to make it a little bit easier to comprehend. So chapter 1 is understanding. It says the hooks are the most important part of the video. From the time I wrote this, I've come to understand that scripts, like in their entirety, are probably the most important part, but the most important part of the script is the hook. You have about 3 seconds to stand out and stop the scroll for any potential viewer. Meaning you could have a great video with a terrible hook and see that video perform awfully, but the minute you switch out that hook for something that you would produce with the hook book, you could see a drastic increase in views, engagement, stuff like that. I've broken hooks down into 14 parts. I know that seems like a lot. There's a little checklist I run through in my mind to ensure that whatever hook I'm creating is really, really powerful. And chapter 2 is writing. So once I've gone through all the steps of ideation that we covered in the last lesson, I will typically put it into a template. And I know a lot of people kind of roll their eyes at templates, like, oh, like one size doesn't fit all. And I still believe that. I just find it a lot more helpful to kind of take a really broad idea if I'm having trouble, kind of shoving in this template that I know is proven to work. Everyone has heard the is it possible hook. Everyone has heard that. I don't know who needs to hear this, but it is something that they work for a reason and you've heard them for a reason. That's kind of the way I think about it. So by plugging into these storytelling templates, I kind of set myself up for success from the start. And then all the ideation work I did on the front end just aids in helping me flesh out the entire hook. Because typically people think of hooks as like one line, but I have them as maybe 3 or 4. So you have your base idea, you have some storytelling elements, you've plugged it into your template, but how do you make that template unique to every single video and kind of elaborate and expand from there? And this is where story starts to come in. We'll obviously cover so much of this in the next lesson for scripting. Goal of the hook is to set up at least one dream, one pain, and let the viewer know that you're about to do some storytelling. We do this by adding a time frame, location, things of that nature that kind of pull the person from what they're looking at on their phone into like your world and what you see in your mind. This is reinforced with cinematography, the imagery, and whatever B-roll you're slogging together while editing. And this is how you start to kind of get that viewer comprehension. And for viewer comprehension, think of it as like audience matching, but for yourself. Say I'm like, and then I took a sip of coffee and I started talking. You're saying what you're doing while you're doing it. Kind of what you want to start doing the script. The person should be able to listen to the hooks, see the hook, and understand what the rest of the video is about. And then if that information seems rare, valuable, and all the things we'll go over, that's what pulls them in to keep watching the rest of the video. We already covered what a dream and a pain is in the first lesson, but to rehash it, a dream is something your audience desperately wants but hasn't reached yet, and a pain is something they're too afraid to admit out loud. So this is like universal belief, fear, dream, pain, or shame thought. And that's going to instantly suck them in, because if they hear something that's so specific to them, their ears are going to perk up and be like, oh wait, this guy actually might have something that's useful to me. They're looking for entertainment, they're looking for value. That's the two things they're looking for, and if you can do both at the same time, you typically have a pretty good video. In the hook book, HookBook, I used the example of filming in public, which is a video I made. And these were some like variations I used of that hook. It was like, growing up, I was a really shy kid. So when I first started making content, I hated filming in public until I forced myself to fly to New York in order to get over my fear in one of the most public places in the world. A lot of relatability. Like this is a pretty strong hook. I could probably even make a video out of it now, but it's growing up, I was a really shy kid. When I first started making content, so they already know that I was a kid, but then I started making content. I hated filming in public, so that's a common pain point a lot of people face. Something I even cover in this course because how much of a pain point it is. So I forced myself to fly to New York, something so drastic and eye-catching, to get over my fear in one of the most public places in the world. This is taking a relatable pain point, injecting my story, and having a dream result of getting over the fear of filming in public. You want the wording to be how you talk, and sometimes when you're filming, you'll be saying the hook, and it's okay to just completely scrap all the work you did out the window, rephrasing what you said so it comes out. Writing hooks is something you'll get better at with time. Competitor analysis also helps a ton with this because you can kind of understand, engage, and pull from what the hook is already doing and understand like what makes a hook good. And then when you start getting your viral videos, you'll understand what you have to do to make your style work with, you know, your tone, your hooks, and your scripting, all that stuff like that. And in general, with anything in this course, everything is a learnable skill. So if it's really, really hard right now, just keep pushing. Like I said in the first thing, do not give up. All of this is learnable. Like, I'm no one fancy. So I think this is going to be something very, very beneficial for all of you. When it comes to filming hooks, this is something that a lot of people overlook. They go like, this is a visual hook and it's one shot. But I noticed as I started making more content and understanding theory behind hook, or what hook theory, whatever, to sound fancy, the more shots that you have, the more you can break the pattern. And what people are talking about when they're saying like pattern break is like when you're scrolling, when you see something, like, you know, the feeling of seeing something so engaging that you stop. And you have 3 seconds. That's the 3 seconds that we're encapsulating. And this is mostly visual. And this is because light moves faster than sound. So if you have a lot of quick shots, it will grab the attention of the eyes, and then when the ears finally pick up on what you're saying, that's when they kind of get pulled into the ICP, and that's where you have your captions on screen as well. I've drilled into the community that each hook should be around 3 shots in order to get the minimum level of visual engagement. The more shots, the better. This kind of gets into editing, but you need to practice clean editing over brain rot, but the clean editing still has to be fast. If you're having 15 clips in 5 seconds, the person's brain is going to explode because it's just not going to be able to comprehend what's going on. But if you have 4 clips within the first 5 seconds of the video, that's enough time for them to mash the movement and understand what's going on and still be visually engaged. And if your words can carry them to the next chapter, which that's going to do so much for your retention. Typically what I do, and if you go and watch my videos, I'm literally breaking my formula open. When I want to film a hook, I pick any activity. This could be sitting at my desk. This could be opening my laptop. This could be going on a run. This could be waking up in the morning. And we'll get into everything about filming in the 5th lesson. I break the lines of the hook into 3 different angles. And I experimented with this with one video of seeing how small of a place you could film at by just filming at my desk. I don't hear any excuses about, I don't have room to film, because you do. So to summarize, just make sure that when you're filming your hook, it's not one static shot, and there's so much fast movement that it's breaking that pattern, and then what you're saying is kind of pulling them into like the world you're building really, really quickly. A lot of my editing is per video, but there's a few things that stay consistent. There was always a whoosh at the start and a zoom in. If there was like a slow zoom on this, you would be brought in and you would feel like closer to me. So say you have like 3 shots and it's like you're moving a lot. If you bring them in and make it feel really close, they're going to be pulled in by the shots moving fast and also that zoom in, so they're naturally inclined to lean in a little bit. And then you have the words that are kind of stacking and bring them into that world like I just mentioned. Then I add sound effects on keywords. So if I was like, and then I started making content, I would play like a click sound effects content. And that kind of just helps highlight what you're talking about and like keep snapping the little brain, because it might be fried at this point. I always consider like, how long have they been scrolling for? How bad do we need to break this pattern? And just having a few sound effects, not overdoing it, because too many sound effects, there's like this threshold of pattern breaking. And if you kind of like, you want here, but if you go too far this way, you break them out of the pattern so much that they get overwhelmed and just close the app. And then finally for the music, we'll get to this more in editing, but I use typically 5 songs per video. And the first song always stops at the end of the hook. And typically I add like a hit or something like that. And this does a few things. One, it like helps continue to break the pattern and set up the backstory, but also build anticipation for what else you're saying. And that's why when we get into scripting, we'll understand how important the transition is from hook to backstory and how to make that seamless in all your videos. Once you've pulled them in, you keep them in. If you're not building anticipation, say the hook was really, really strong, you probably see on your graphic goes that like right off the bat, that's because the hook and the backstory weren't connected in a place where it's kind of level it out. And then with captions, you typically have them right here, just popping up centrally, so that when they're scrolling, like the more central the captions are, the easier they are to read. Typically that's where people's eyes fall. And 80% of people scroll without any audio, so when the captions are right front and center, they can read what you're saying. They'll be able to read what you're saying and understand what the hook is about, even if they don't have any sound on. And then chapter 5 is just to summarize it all, my super hook checklist. And this is something I literally run through for every single one of my hooks to make sure that video has the best chance of doing well. So 1, does it spark emotion? Is there any indicative value? Is it genuine? Does it have mass appeal? Can you apply any social proof? Is it appealing to look at? Is the audio clear? Is the caption clear and easy to read? Does it feel rare, like they found a secret piece of info? Does it Does it include the word you? Analytically proven to help a little bit. If that's the case, you can always be like, you ever feel like sometimes you won't be able to fit the word you into a story about yourself? Plenty of viral videos that don't include the word. Is there a whoosh sound effect with a zoom at the start? I do at least 2 to 5 words to have those sound effects, like I said, for retention. Does the first song end at the final word of your hook? All these things work in conjunction in order to get them to stop the scroll and listen to your video. And that's why the hook is so important, because if you don't have these things, you could have an amazing script, but if the hook is just like, 2 days ago I did this, like no one cares, genuinely. So that's what you have to make them care with cinematography, sound effects, sound design, editing. And then the last thing I do after going through the 14-step checklist is I just do a final like blanket. Is it appealing? Does it grab attention fast? Is it effective? Does it make them feel something? And is it authentic? Does it sound and look and feel like me? So that's really how I go about hooks. I will include the hook book below so you can actually like go through it and read it in depth for yourself. But I will see you in lesson 4, which is scripting. Hey, welcome to lesson 4, which is scripting. This, in my opinion, is the most important part of the video. Hooks are the most important part of scripting, but this is the most important part of the video. It's the same reason that videos with no editing can go viral, and it's the same reason that videos with a lot of editing go super viral. And like everything else in my life, I have a Notion template for it, along with our new AI scripter called Dip that we're actually working on a V2 right now. I will update this video once that is released. Just a few things to note before you start. 80% of Instagram users have their sound off, like I mentioned before, meaning the script and the captions are really, really important for keeping people engaged to have the sound off. That's 80% of the people watching your video are going to need to know what's going on without hearing anything. And to help the flow of story, I start every single word of my script with my story starters. It's words like so, and, but, therefore, because, however. And the more you write scripts, the more you'll understand how to use them in the right way. But as you use them and don't repeat them, the script will flow really nicely. And that's how all these big creators are getting that seamless storytelling. It's just because the first lines of their words are moving so flawlessly. The goal of the script is kind of tease the viewer into the end and kind of hype up the value to hyperbolic levels. You want the pains to feel so painful and the dreams to feel so wonderful that they have no choice but to understand and watch and hear your story and listen to you so they can get the value or whatever is promised from the hook at the start, like we talked about last lesson. Audience matching and now viewer comprehension. The more keywords you can put into your script, the better. The AI scans your script and also your captions and everything in your video to kind of see where to audience match you with. The more you use keywords in your scripts in the beginning stages, the easier the AI will have. You get it. With that being said, do not spam the keywords. Some stories are not going to be keyword specific. Maybe you have like 1 or 2. It's not make or break because you can always rehash it in the caption. But if I was talking about any video about content creation, typically has the words content creation, video, influencer, creator. When creators, influencers are listening to it, they're like, oh, it's me. Everything in balance, I would say. And then while I'm writing, I start thinking of shots. You don't have to storyboard the entire video. I just think it's a really good way to save time when filming. If you know what shots are going to be B-roll prior. It also is helpful for when you're 5 years ago and you have a video of you from 5 years ago. It really helps bring the viewer into the world and help with that viewer comprehension, because instead of having just imagine what you look like 5 years ago, you're showing them, telling them, and there's some sound design that they're like, oh, like 5 years ago, yeah, the vibe you want for the entire video. If there's something you can show better with a B-roll unique shot acting, like obviously put it in. This is also to note, everything in content is like stacked onto each other. So if your ideas are weak, your script is weak, and if your script is weak, your storyboard is weak, and if your storyboard is weak, your filmmaking is weak, and then you get it. That's why it's so important to have this foundational understanding of each aspect and each element so that you can grow as a well-rounded creator that has enough skill set in each of the larger elements and consistently pump out really, really quality stuff. I used to storyboard every single line, but that's not sustainable, and I found it very limiting in whatever space I was in. Plan the shots ahead of time that would benefit viewer comprehension most, but you don't have to plan every shot. What I found is that when I used to storyboard every single aspect of the video, when I would enter a new environment, it would limit my creativity and I wouldn't be able to kind of get that eye for cinematography. Filmmaking is one of my most valuable assets. I've always been a very creative person. I've been talking to some of you that have the same experience of like always growing up creative. If you have like the artist eye, you can kind of see things from a different point of view, and it is a muscle you can train. That's what I learned that recently. If you give yourself more practice in visualizing things, it's a lot easier to do. So now when to use AI. Dip, which was literally built on all of my scripts, all of my foundations, everything in this course has been taken into his little brain. He's really, really good at writing the scripts that I do, and I know he'll help a ton of you out when you're first starting scripting. The best way to use Dip is to take your idea, be like, I want to make a video about blank, and he'll take it and run. He'll ask you the questions that I'm about to walk you through. Dip is really good at saving you time on the foundational level, just kind of getting the story on paper, like even if it's word vomit, just to get that down. I would highly recommend to build your skill of scripting coming in after him, practicing and learning and understanding why he's making the decisions he's making, seeing what it is, like how he's connecting, how the story starters are going. So everything like that, because you need to know how to script. It's one of the most crucial things. And if you can't write a script and you're only relying on AI, you will never improve. Dip is also really good at helping you, like, condense down any long sentences, some more viewer comprehension on a more complex idea, and then any overly big words. The average viewer comprehension is going to be at a 5th grade level. So any explicative words typically will go over their heads, and they're going to have a hard time comprehending. And when viewers have a hard time comprehending, they scroll away. That's why viewer comprehension is so important. That's why AI is really good at taking those ideas and simplifying them and then helping you put them back into your script in a way that still feels authentic to you and is comprehensible to the wide spread of viewers. And that's how we get the relatable, shareable. And that's what I mean, that everything kind of relates back to each other. It's pretty cool. Now, these are some example storytelling frameworks of how to just get your structure. If you have like the idea for a story you want to tell but don't really know how to go about it, all of these frameworks have been built into Dip, and if you want to look through them, you can. When scripting, when writing hooks, when doing anything with content, there's so many like, still these frameworks, still these viral hooks. But if you really want to make authentic, unique content, you don't fit into any one bracket, and it's going to be really hard for you to like use any particular framework. It's never one size fits all. So it's super okay not to follow some exact framework. There's 7 steps to take to make sure that the script is coming out in the way I want it to. And step 1 is really, really helpful for a lot of new people. I don't do this as much as I used to when I first started because I can kind of do it in my head now. It's basically writing out the entire video in one line, under 25 words. And the problem, the intention to overcome that problem, the obstacles you face while intending to overcome that problem, and then the solution that finally cleared all the obstacles out of the way. See what the video is before I've even begun writing. Back to the issues we had with the camera while filming the course. So the problem is like my camera kept dying while I was filming. My intention is I'm going to charge my camera, but the obstacle is that we don't have the charger here. Oh my gosh. The solution is we drove back to the house, got the camera, charger, and charged the thing. Obviously very simplistic, and you'd want something a little more higher stakes, and maybe like the car broke down the way to the house or something like that. It's a very simple line, but it's going to keep you on track while you do the rest of these steps. And step 2 is the hook, and the lesson that I went super in depth with hooks will help you with this. Step 3 is backstory and context. If we're like ranking things by importance, the script is the most important, but the 2 most important parts of the script is like it goes hook, backstory, takeaway, then breaking point, then call to action. The backstory is where you want to tell your story and also build up how important the value is. The goal is to build, suspend, stimulate, and provoke. Whenever I'm writing each line of the backstory, which typically is around like 5 or 6, it can be longer or shorter. This is my goal, my intention for each. If you're having trouble starting the backstory, it's just being like, you have framed them in with the time. It would be like 10 years ago, I thought no one liked me. And then you need to start using specific language. This is where I see a lot of people struggle. And this is one thing that Dip helps greatly with. It will ask you for specific moments so that you can have specific language. So instead of being like 10 years ago, I felt the same way. 10 years ago when I was in lower school, I had no one to play with at the playground and I felt the same way. And even just for me saying that, can you imagine that scenario in your head? Do you see me as a little kid like standing on the playground sad? And that's the power of specific language. A really good example of this is like any movie. Do they like just skip to the climax? No, because they have to build backstory. You have to care about the characters. And the way you do that is by seeing their specific struggles. And that's what you kind of want to do for the viewer. Scripting is a balance of storytelling and retention, and also like injecting value. And again, value is from emotion, storytelling, actual actionable info. Wow, tongue twister. It's kind of this like juggling act of having enough story for them to understand where you're coming from, but also enough value so that they're feeling like they're not wasting their time by staying. And the value, again, can come from the story, but it's going to lean more towards like humor and emotion. And one thing I noticed is that if there's ever a part of your script that seems really wording, adding like a quick joke or a quick like self-reflective moment of like, that was weird. Those act as such powerful pattern breakers because they're emotive in the way that they help pull out some humor from the person and kind of break the pattern of like if it's a very serious tone, but also they just kind of help break the pace. Whenever you're scripting, your line should be like short, long, medium, short, long. And that kind of shows that your rhythm and your pacing is already kind of built in. And that's one thing that we need to keep in mind. Pace is mainly controlled when filming and editing, but if you start by scripting it out with pace in mind, it's gonna be so much easier and save you so much time in the back end. And that rhythm pace is exactly what you want to be seeing. Because if you just have like a paragraph script, not gonna be very engaging because there's no push pull fast tease, you know, and that's kind of what you want for short form content. Now back to my main point before I started rambling is you have like the retention. What you want to make it like psychologically impossible for them not to watch the rest of the video. So that's like the premise of the video and bringing them to the resolution, like kind of what we talked about the first thing, that giant log line. So how do you do that when you're telling a story? And you're probably thinking, well, my stories aren't very exciting, like this and this. But like, 1, everyone's story can be exciting if told the right way. And 2, there's like a couple little tidbits in here that I have that are gonna help you out. So number 1 is a burning question. That's starting with something your audience really wants to know, but doesn't get the answer to the end. And that would be done with something like, what's the secret to making scripts go viral every single time? You probably want to know that. If I just kind of ignored the question that I asked myself in the video, you'd be like, when is he going to answer it? And you would at least get 2 or 3 seconds out of the viewer. You ask a burning question, you answer it a couple lines later, and then the minute you answer it, that should prompt another burning question that brings them to the end. So you can really stack 2 or 3 per these. You can stack 2 or 3 of these per video, depending on if the story lets you. If you go into mine, like any self-reflective talk, like, oh, what was I thinking? That's technically a burning question. Now, controversial, it's something like, don't get me wrong, X is good, but Y is so much better. These I use a little bit less because typically with stories, you're not going to have I would say these kind of fall in the beginning of the backstory. And then authority, it's like you want to inject authority as much as you can as you grow in your experience. So more recently, I've been like, that's how I got 100K. That's how I got 3 million views. And having some authority will make people trust you a little bit more, but you don't want to have so much authority that you come off in like a guru tone, because I never want to come off as a guru. Like I hope the tone of this video is, the tone of these lessons are very casual and like I'm just talking to you because that's what I want to be doing. And a risk reversal would be like, even if you have no time, money, energy, this still works. And that makes it seem like there's no drawback to applying the value that you're about to give in the rest of the video. And then a mind read would be like, and no, it's not X. And say I was like, here's how I got my camera to stop dying when I was filming. It's happened more than you think. I would be like, and no, it's not getting a new battery. No, it's not getting a new charger. No, it's not, et cetera, et cetera. And that's just kind of like, oh, then what is it? Like, what's the secret information? And that kind of goes back into the hook idea of like, is this information feel valuable? And keep in mind, for that long hook list, you can really take that and see if your entire script fits into it, because you know it's better than one hook, like 14. Just rip them through the script. And that's kind of goes in like the rehook. They rehook the viewer in. And there's so many ways to do this. Like all of these would be counted as rehooks. You have the hook, so it's up. You have the tease at the end of the hook, so it's down. You have the backstory, which is painful, and then you bring it back up. And by the time here, they're like, should I keep watching? You rehook them. It's like, but wait till you hear this, boom, and then they keep going. Once you start to seriously script and watch content, you're going to notice so many of these things. You'll be like, oh my God, how did I not understand this sooner? After I finish the backstory, this is typically when I'll do the first round of revisions, and that's making sure the hook bleeds into the backstory really nicely. The backstory will end around 25 seconds into the video, and that's the average time people are going to watch. So that's why it's so important. That's why I have it ranked number 2. So our goal, and Dip helped with this, is to get as much story, value, and information possible into these like 6 or 7 or 8 lines. Don't worry about the length of your script, because you can always speed up or slow down how you're talking. And also, I found that I cut entire lines if they drag when I'm editing, or if the shot wasn't good. Like, you're going to be working on the script for the rest of the video process, and this is just making sure that you have a strong enough base where you don't have to do too much extraneous work post-production. So how do we have the most information in the shortest amount of time? By removing anything vague. So instead of like, I think I used this analogy in like maybe one of the videos that corrupted. If not, I stubbed my toe. That's compelling because obviously everyone has stubbed their toe, and like that's a level of pain. What if I was like, I stubbed my toe and my nail broke and I rolled on the ground for 5 minutes? Feel that almost, you know, like there's the pain of like when it hits the right spot and you're like, oh my God. You want to basically, for every struggle, you want to say when, where, and how much it sucked. And that's kind of what I'm saying. Like, that's why our scripts are trying to really make the pain seem so painful and the dreams be so amazing. That's how you tell a compelling story. Rough outline of like cutting every sentence below 20 words. But if you have a really, really big run-on sentence, try to condense that down as much as possible, or even split it into 2 if it's crucial information. So step 4 is the breaking point. The hook and the backstory is leading up to this breaking point, this big moment where everything changed, and you want it to be a specific moment so the information you're giving feels like if they did it today, they could change their life. And that's the reason that we want a specific moment, rather than like, and then over the next 3 to 5 business days, I got better. Like, they're gonna be like, I'm not gonna waste time on that, because like everyone else is going for that rapid like satisfaction. How I approach the breaking point is I'll start with like a really short, as short as I can get summary of the backstory. The secret to a good breaking point is making the realization a burning question. That like annoyed curiosity is what's going to pull them through the takeaway. Also, while you're writing this breaking point, this is a very crucial point in the video, because you're around the 30-second mark, and this is where people are going to be like, oh, I'm out, or they're going to like really lean in and watch the rest of the video, because if they make it past 30 seconds, they're pretty much invested at this point. 4 days ago, I watched Jackson Sword's course, wink, and I finally did these 3 things to make my retention graph skyrocket. Alluding that you're about to give value is the most important part of the breaking point. You don't want to give away too much value, because obviously you want to like slowly inject value throughout the entire video, but alluding to value while you continue is really, really important. When you're doing the breaking point, to summarize, you give away a little bit of value, and then you allude to more in the takeaway, and that's where you're going to give like the 3 points or secret sauce or whatever, and they're going to answer all the burning questions at once, and it's going to be like a really nice finale. It's going to feel really satisfying for them, and that's what's going to prompt the call to action and get them to actually do what you want them to do. If they feel like in a minute of watching, you just explained everything so flawlessly, you have so much story, it was so well done, they'll be like, oh my God, I have to follow this guy because I want to see him do it again tomorrow. So the goal of the takeaway is to shift their mindset on whatever you're talking about without sounding like a coach. And then, like I said before, this is where they're either going to like, comment, and follow, or they're going to scroll away and never want to see you again because you wasted a minute of their time, which on social media is very long. How do we have a good takeaway every single time? I alluded to this in the beginning, lesson 1. Value per second is something that you kind of want to carry, not just in the script, but in the cinematography, in the editing, in everything. Because the more value you're giving per second, the more likely they are to stay. Because everyone kind of feels a little bit guilty for going on social media. So if you're making them feel like they're not wasting their time by giving them intentional value, they're really going to appreciate that. And the way to kind of avoid that guru tone is having the tonality of how you would talk to your friend or something like that. And that's kind of what we'll get into more with like talking authentically on camera and how to kind of carry your script. You know, even if you're typing it out a little bit robotically, the way you say it is going to be so important, and you can kind of correct that error and learn how you talk while you do it. And this is why I want you to understand that value can be in many different things, because obviously the entire video, if you're telling a story, can't be like, and then I did this to do this, and then I did this to do this, because that's going to be one, repetitive. The value will be so one-sided that it won't really connect to you in any way. Now, in order to make sure you're having good value per second throughout the entire script, I typically do this to evaluate. Say it's like line 3 of backstory. It'd be like, does this have value in some way? Is it authentic, prompt emotion, follow the story, or actual information? And is it said in the most comprehensive way possible? So am I getting my point across? And this is something even I struggle with to this day, of getting such a complex idea. Like making a video about this was so hard, and I've been talking for such a long time, still not done, and I had to fit this all into under a minute, you know? So like it's really, really difficult. That's why some free resources can be so helpful to kind of fulfill an idea, but you also want the video itself to be naturally valuable, so you're getting the saves and the shares and stuff like that. I'd rather you make a really, really valuable video than a bunch of bad free resources, because bad free resources are going to leave a really bad taste in people's mouth if they go through the process of commenting, following you because they commented, and then they read the free resource and it's just like miserable. Like, you obviously don't want that at all. So this is how I go about free resources in order to make them really, really good. First, I write down everything I know about a video topic, and this is where I'll include any information that wasn't in the actual video, because there needs to be a reason for them to like want it. If you're like, and I went way more in depth on this in the free resource, then there's like a reason for them to understand that you're going to provide even more value when they comment. And if after you've written everything down, it's like really jumbled and messy, okay to use AI to condense and write it down, but you really want to go back and use your own tone, your own verbiage, because if they get the free resource and it's like AI, it seems like you had no input in it at all, and they're just going to be like equally as pissed off as if the resource is bad. Even if the information is good, no one likes reading things that are like from AI. You know, like that feeling of like, oh, he didn't even take the time to write this. And the 20 minutes it will take for you to go down for like an infinitely useful free resource is worth it, I promise. This is where you would use authentic ManyChat, as I mentioned in lesson 1, to get the people to comment, and then they get the free resource, but it's also as they interact with you, and then you're building followers, engagement, and stuff like that. Step 6 is a soft CTA. And that's the idea of like inviting but not selling. People put a lot of emphasis on how important it is. In my experience, that's false. Typically, if you do all the other steps right, they should come very naturally. The reason it's called a soft CTA is because it's kind of bled into there with words like but, and, or so. You want to have already done the work, and then once you bring in the CTA, it's really, really easy for them to be like, oh, like, I'll follow this guy. Like, he just gave me a bunch of information. And then in order to make sure you know if your action is good, does the action that you're asking for give them information that's able to be implemented in 24 hours? Would they pay like $5 for it? And is it so good it hurts to give away for free? And like I said in lesson 1, the audience trust is like invaluable, so it's worth the $5 you give away or whatever. And you'll have access to the scripting 101, so you can read through and understand it and really get that like high viewer comprehension for yourself. I think of my first final script as like a blob of clay. Like the really nice, beautiful, viral, clean, flowing script is in there, but we kind of have to like scrape it out. What I do is go line by line to kind of shave off things. So number 1, if it's a really long run on line with a pain point, I find like the most relatable keyword way to put that pain point. And then I make sure there's raw information about myself on that, so it's like specific, actionable, and everything like that. And then if it's a line that's pushing the story, I think about how I felt at the time and make sure that feeling and emotion is conveyed through that line. Again, I'll just cut anything that doesn't carry the video forward, drags it all. You really want to be hard on yourself. You're like, the way I think about it is, if I'm bored reading this part of the script, the viewer is going to be so bored watching it. It's literally me, so I should care, and if I don't, that means no one else will. So that's Scripting 101, and I will see you in Module 2. Welcome to Lesson 4, Module 2. I want to drill into your head that scripts are the most important part of the video. Again, that's why videos that have very little editing can still do very, very well. This is where a story lives, and that's not an exaggeration. To be the most authentic and the most condensed way possible, like i.e. getting your point across, getting yourself across in the like fastest way, when you're going line by line, it's a lot easier for you to have the story and build out the story in a fast and compact way. Rather when you're doing dot point, it's more like off the cuff. But for the time being, in order to have that really, really like clean storytelling that people are really drawn to right now, line by line is your way to go, and it's how you improve that skill the fastest. A video, like a good formula, is like 60% story and 40% value, because remember, story is a part of the value itself. And when you're giving value, a really good way to get your point across for like viewer comprehension is to reiterate your point twice. Meaning when you reiterate your point twice, you are able to reinforce that value, like I just did there. So you're saying the same thing in a different way, back to back, just to really drill it into your head that that's like the main thing of the video, and that should be something that's mentioned in your hook. Now, this kind of goes back to getting authority, and we're going to go to story comes from authenticity. Every script should include the elements from your why, meaning your pains, your dreams, and solutions, because those are what you know the best. And using the specific language that you wrote out in those why statements are going to make your videos that much more authentic, because you're really injecting every single part of yourself into each video. And that goes all the way back to parasocial relationships, because the more of you in each video, the faster the content minutes are going to build that connection and then get someone to be encouraged to follow or do whatever you want your followers to do. This is also why I recommend having your content based on what you're doing day to day already, because naturally your stories will be authentic to you because you're just telling the stories of what you did that day. So there's no room for like super exaggeration or lying, because it just wouldn't be true. This is how your tone or the slang you use affects your authority. I'm 22, so I'm gonna have a little more like I'm gonna use more slang by nature as a 22-year-old male. But it kind of depends where you are and how much you can get away with it without sounding cringy. Like when your dad says meme or something like, I don't know why you know that. The level of authority will be reflected in how you use slang. I think of it kind of like a level. You get authority based off your experience in your story, but you maintain that story through the level of authenticity. So you kind of want them to be balanced here. For me, I'd probably be like a little more authentic, more than authoritative, because I just like relating to you guys, and I'm still building, I'm still growing. So there's no reason for me to front and be like, I know everything, because I don't, and I'm still learning. I'm very open about that. Meaning like you're not fronting, you're not hiding everything, and that brutal honesty will connect with someone even further enforced with everything I've talked about in this module on the parasocial relationship that we're chasing. It is going to be hard to put your flaws and pain points out for everyone you know to see. Like it's really, really difficult, but once you take that first step, it's going to become almost second nature. And people will probably be like, oh my gosh, how is he being so open and honest? And it's just the idea of like that we're all human. We're all going to make mistakes. It's not always going to be like 100% perfect. And if you're trying to be perfect online, people can tell, and they have like a BS filter, and people know when you're lying. And that's kind of when I go back to don't lie about anything, because like there's no reason to, because there's more benefit in being honest than there is trying to put on a front and then getting caught in a lie and then getting canceled and you lose everything you've worked for. You have the reliability through the brutal honesty, and that moves over to authority with reliability. And that's kind of talking through your experience, because people follow what they want to become. Even though I'm not the largest creator in the world, I don't think any of you would mind having 8,000 new followers on a new account. It would just be a really good stepping stone. So I know how to get there currently, and I know how to get to my next step, and I'm working towards my next step. And once I get there, that is where my authority will increase. But for now, that brutal honesty that's giving me the reliability to talk as an authority figure in this space. When I started getting good at making cinematic storytelling content, I got so many comments of criminally underrated, you're underrated, bro, you're gonna blow up soon, all this. And that showed me that people wanted me to be in a higher authority position than where I was. So once I started acting like I was in the higher authority position and kind of took that next step, that's when the followers started to come, because I was speaking from a place of confidence rather than a place of like, well, I think this would work, which was coming from my first couple of videos. And like that transfer is really, really important, but you can't do the transfer unless you are honest from the start and just are carrying it through your experience and not where you want to be. So that's kind of an understanding of scripting. That's my rationale behind my level of authority and tone, kind of helping you to understand how scripts play a role in everything I just mentioned. That's lesson 4. I will see you in lesson 5 when we talk about filmmaking. Welcome to lesson 5. This is all about cinematography, how I make my videos look so fancy and well made, even while filming just on my phone. And I wanted the first module to be kind of like what to know about storytelling. If I sound gravelly and evil, it's because I've been talking for like 14 hours today. That does not mean I was not having a blast. This has been one of the most fun days of my life. What you need to know about storytelling is that typically every story, like in theory, has 3 simple acts, which would be like impact, attention, which is like your hook and backstory, influencing conversation. This is the end of backstory, breaking point. And then pressure and transformation. This would be breaking point, the takeaway. And then also the transformation via the call to action or something of that nature. And there are goals for emotional storytelling. Say I was making a video on a more somber topic, I would have little comedic moments in there to like spruce it up. And then the reason we're going over this first is so that you can keep all this in mind when you're making your shots and kind of plan accordingly. Think of this as like foundations of shooting storytelling videos. Imagine you're walking to your friend's apartment and they're watching a TV show you've never seen. The people who are writing the scripts are going to be able to flesh out that character enough within the show so that even a new viewer who's entering on episode 5 is going to know enough about the character to have context for them for whatever episode they're in. And the more you look at media and watch it, the more you realize how true this is. So in our videos, we need to make sure we're doing that. The returning characters in this case is you, and also if you're filming with a friend or something like that, they need to also be fleshed out in each thing. It's okay to rehash the same clips over and over again if that's going to help your audience comprehend who you are in the fastest way. If you notice a lot of my content, I use the same B-roll for certain clips, and that's so that there's a level of familiarity for returning viewers, but also new viewers. It's new to them, so it's they don't think anything of it, and also like I don't post frequently enough for people to really realize. And what you want to do is create a bond between yourself and the audience. Like right now, I would say I'm being very authentic because I'm exhausted, and I'm not trying to be like, hey guys, welcome to lesson 5. Like I'm just not going to do that. This is kind of going back to parasocial relationships, is creating that bond between yourself and the audience is the most important step that you can do. It's how you have a strong Instagram account and a strong community is ultimately the overarching goal. No matter what you want to do with social media, having a strong community is going to make it so much easier. Like I said, I have filmed every single piece of content that has gotten you here on my phone. You really don't need a fancy setup anymore to make really nice cinematic content. How to make your phone look like a $2,000 camera, and also the link to all my LUTs that I use to make my videos look the way they do. If you're filming on your phone, using a combination of the nice camera app with the right settings, a LUT, so there's tons of free ones out there. Like I said, I'm including mine, and then like light color grading, you can make any footage, and then learning how to export in 4K that Instagram can actually condense, most likely look better than people who are shooting on like, I'm borrowing Jordan's very expensive camera for this. They'll look very comparable. Like, of course, there's gonna be little tweaks and stuff that the lens of that camera, like the lens of an expensive camera, will pick up that you can't. But when you're first starting out, I'm on pace to hit 10K just with my phone, and I'll probably stay that way for a good long while until I decide to take the leap to camera. Welcome to lesson 5, module 2. This is the 6th time I'm recording this. This is kind of more of a mindset thing, but a lot of stuff is going to go wrong when you're making content, either in scripting, filmmaking, editing. At some aspect in the pipeline, it's going to go wrong. But I guess the way I think about it, it's like, I'm choosing to do this. No one is like putting a gun to my head and it's like, Jackson, make the video. On days like this when everything literally goes wrong, I've never had more trouble making a video, which is kind of funny because it's like the simplest one I've made in a long time. You just gotta know that like you're the one putting yourself through these scenarios, and it's gonna be worth it in the end. So yeah, let's get into it. This lesson is titled Storyboarding an Application. So how you take a storyboard. It's a great way of building the muscle of cinematography. So like when you're first starting out, I think of the muscle of being like a newborn. It's like it's really hard to move it, but the more you train it and the more you kind of get your, like, it sounds so hippie, but like your mind's eye around cinematography, because this is probably one of the more artistic aspects of content creation. Writing a script, you're creative, but this is like visually creative, and that's a whole different beast. You know, there's so many ways to critique and consider art. So when you're first starting out, storyboarding is a really, really good way to kind of train that muscle quickly. We're about to get into how to take inspiration from people who know what they're doing to make it look like you know what you're doing, and in turn learn enough so that you know what you're doing. But I would say I can lift like 50 pounds of cinematography. And if you're just starting out, you'll be at 0. And hopefully by the end of the rest of this course, you'll be around where I am and kind of have a basic understanding and are able to make cinematic videos in a fast way. Because that is a goal. And there's a few simple steps that I do to really achieve this like fast cinematography. And of course, knowing me, I have checklists, Notion documents, everything like that. But whenever I have a storyboard, to rehash what I said previously, I always plan out the hook because this is going to be 3 shots. It's the most important part of the video. I have a few unique shots per video, just depending what's going to help the viewer comprehend what you're saying the most. And then also when I'm storyboarding, I mark down with B-roll ahead of time so that I'm not over filming. And this is going to save me a lot of time. Like, why would I film a clip that's just going to be a voiceover and some B-roll? What I did initially to learn how to film cinematically in my space is, say I was in this room, for example. When I first started out, my first 14 videos were just in my room. One was because I was kind of scared to film anywhere else because I didn't like filming in front of people, and we're going to cover that. But 2 was because I really didn't know what I was doing with the camera yet, and I felt like I needed to master one space, kind of like ins and out of cinematography and what makes it good, before moving on to other places and experimenting. So this is when I was doing most of my storyboarding. So I would just kind of really think of every single unique shot I could do in one space. And for anyone starting out, I would recommend this because if you can start to make your videos in just your room interesting, you start to film outside, when you start to film with people in separate locations, it's going to be a lot easier because you kind of already have that skill set built out at a base level. Really focus on your cinematography for about 2 weeks. You can get it to a level that's pretty high above everyone because no one really takes the time to do it. And it's just really going to set your visuals apart. One thing I mentioned earlier being one of the 6 recordings, it's been a long day, guys, but would say my standard of like content is up here, and that's because of all like the cinematic gobbledygook I do. One thing I'd recommend for anyone starting, the reason you're probably here is because you like my videos, you like how I tell content, but the one thing I wish I had done is maybe when I was first starting out, just bring it down here, meaning like still the same quality, but in a simpler way. I think that's gonna be really, really helpful for any friend of you just starting out, as I have a lot of prior experience a good bit of time to reach, just from making content for people, editing. Like, I've been making content for 10 years. I've been editing for 5. So I have a lot of prior experience that I was able to, my baseline is going to be a little bit higher. So if you're starting from a lower angle here, it's okay to like only go to here and still have very, very quality scripts, cinematography, and editing if it's just like a lesser thing. So don't feel that you need to become the next Scorsese in order to make high quality like cinematic videos, right? There's a bunch of websites that I'll have linked below. When you're doing your competitor analysis, you're going to notice a couple shots that you think are really, really interesting, and there's nothing wrong with taking heavy inspiration and injecting those into your videos just like anything else. Obviously, never copy a video shot for shot. I'm not recommending that. But if there's a very cool shot that you think would suit a certain aspect of a video you have an idea for well, like I have down here, like this POV shot was not my own original idea. And the way I kind of think about social media is that everyone's kind of copying someone. Like the video you want to make has probably already been made in some certain regard. Don't feel like guilty or that you're stealing if you take 2 seconds of someone's video and the other 58 are unique, Over storyboarding is a way of kind of like stunting your muscle growth, because when you're in a new space, you're going to want to be able to adapt pretty quickly and think of angles on the fly. Like when I went and did my largest collab with Fia, I had never been in their office before. I had no idea what it looked like. So I was just kind of thinking on the fly of what could work. And we made it work. You really want that skill set if you ever do a collab, or even if you want to make content for certain clients. You won't be able to visualize the space because you haven't been there. So having go-to shots that you can pull from that we're about to cover is going to be really, really beneficial. But before you start even shooting, you need to consider composition. You want to be in the center as much as possible. This is one, because where your captions are going and where the eyes naturally land when you're scrolling. And keep in mind that you want to leave space for these captions, obviously. But the more you're in the center, even with unique shots, that's why I have this here. My face is always front and center. Even in B-roll and stuff like that, I try to center it. And this kind of plays into the rule of thirds. This is coming from Photo 101 in high school. And this would be the middle third, because that's where you want to be. This is just like the common man's way of thinking, and the reason I'm trying to explain it in a very casual way is that because I take it very unserious, and I don't follow half my rules the own time, because you kind of have to think like, I'm shooting an Instagram reel. I'm not making the next Interstellar. So completely like beautifully shot. That's okay, as long as there are videos that have zero editing, zero shots. There's just one static shot of someone talking, and they still do very, very well. And that's because there's a really, really heavy emphasis on connection and scripts and authenticity that way. Cinematography is a tool to convey that better. So say you have the same script and one of them is just a talking head video and one of them cinematically storytelling. The cinematic storytelling video has a much higher ceiling. They're both viral. I believe that the cinematic storytelling one can ascend above whatever the talking head one is, because it's like people will respect the polish and like the craft of making the video and the effort you put in, rather than someone that's just like 90 ways to lose 10 pounds. You know what I mean? And this kind of goes into the idea of filming for pace. It's a lot easier to have retention if the shots are constantly moving. There will be no shot over 5 seconds. And I'm going to drill that into your head. You'll get an eye for it as you edit. You don't want the video to feel like it's dragging at any point, but you do want to have moments where a very fast-paced video slows down or a very slow-paced video speeds up. And that kind of goes back to our idea of like the story wave. And most of my videos are filmed like this, with a rotation of long, medium, and short shots, and then I just rotate through the camera angles to keep it visually engaging. And also, I'm always anticipating transitions. So there's 2 types of transitions, one being hard cuts, and that's just like when there's no seamless transition between 2 things. Seamless cuts where it's like, and that's when everything changed. So just a very rough example, obviously. If you go through any of my videos, you can kind of tell when a transition was planned versus when it's a hard cut. So when you're filming for pace, say you have like three lines, right? You could do 1, 2, 3. That is way more engaging than 1, 2, 3. That's kind of the principle I'm trying to display here, is that you don't need to have very, very fancy. You could even be just with a tripod moving your angle. It just, the more effort you put into moving your camera angle, the more visually engaging you'll be, the higher retention will be by default. And then if your script is really connecting with someone, you have a golden video. And there's also some psychology behind the way angles make us feel. I typically like to start off my videos with establishing long shot. Psychologically, it helps the viewer understand where they are and what they're looking at. But when a video is shot at a high angle, that meaning like looking down on you, the audience is kind of peering into your soul, and it makes you look a little bit more vulnerable. And the inverse of that is true as well with a low angle, like they're looking up at you, so you can be a little more dominant in that scenario. So typically when I'm saying something that's very matter of fact or even a little bit like shady, I'll be like, and that's fine. And I kind of look down, kind of like a little backhanded like side information. And of course, like I've broken this rule 400,000 times over the last 60 videos. But the one thing that does stay consistent is me alternating through the distance of shots. Most of my videos are just freestyling, and a good way to have consistent freestyling videos is if I have a long, medium, and short shot rotating through, I'm switching the camera angles, and that is just naturally very visually engaging. It's naturally filmed for pace, so that when I'm editing, it's that much easier. This is my fast filming checklist, and this is so when you're filming on the fly, or even when you're planning, so you have like a pool of shots to pull from. Say you're watching a 40-minute video. If they replicated shot 1 at the 1 minute mark, and then they did shot 1 again at the 39-minute mark, you probably wouldn't remember because it has been so long. There's been so many unique shots in between. But for us, we're at kind of a way lesser time horizon of about 60 seconds. So if you replicate shot 1 at the 15-second and then 30-second mark, it's not going to feel a long time, and the video might feel a little bit like samey. If you're gonna take the time to make cinematic content, like why cheap out there? That's always the way I think about it. The first thing I look for is, do I have a creative and fast-paced hook with a minimum of 3 shots? Obviously, like sometimes I'll do up to 5. I would say when you start to peak above 5, it can be a little bit cluttered or overwhelming depending on length of the hook. Like if the hook is about like 4 lines, then sure, throw 5 shots in there. If you have like a 1-line hook and you have 5 shots, it's gonna feel a little bit too fast. Play it by ear. Typically 3 has been my like golden standard. This kind of goes back to not taking yourself too seriously, but also how that affects your level of authority. I would say that best friend level of authority is the greatest level of authority that you can want to achieve. And I think people really connect to that vulnerability. When I mean acting, say the line was like, and I was so sad, I would literally act like over exaggerated, like so sad. Although I even felt a little bit cringy doing that. The way I kind of explain it to people, if that cringy shot gets you 1 million views, would you do it? Probably, right? And people will appreciate that you're not taking it so serious and trying to be so authoritative, like, because like I said, that's been ruled out. Acting shots are really helpful for conveying a certain emotion or anything of that nature. Next is a talking head shot. This is literally just this is one shot that I will, again, I'm breaking my own rule. A talking head shot is technically anything where you're talking without any effects. So like this will be a talking head shot. Every video you're gonna be talking, but you also like will have some other cinematic effect to it. But just straight up to the camera, it's okay to have like 3 to 4 of these per video. Then a POV shot is where you're at the POV of something else, or the inverse of maybe with POV of what you're seeing. A B-roll shot is obviously, we'll kind of get into how to collect a good B-roll folder when we go into the editing course. But B-roll is really important, like a lot more important than people think for viewer comprehension. And I would say like I have probably like 50-50 split nowadays on how much B-roll I have in my videos, because I just found it so helpful for when I'm trying to reference something from 5 years ago. I have videos of myself from 5 years ago, so it's a lot easier for the viewer to not have to imagine what I looked like 5 years ago if I just showed them. Number 6, which is a unique shot. This is accomplished. This is called a small rig. Anything that's very up close with movement, it's typically done with a small rig, or if it's like a really high angle shot, this will be clamped to some ceiling. This can also be replaced with duct tape. That's kind of how you get some like really unique looking shots, and this kind of goes into the element of creativity. The more creative you can be without having to copy people, the more you'll kind of flex and build that muscle up. So sometimes I'll just like put this on like a cup or something and take a drink. And be careful, because I've broken so many things with this. But unique shots can also be just anything you see from doing your competitor analysis that you think could be really cool that you can recreate. Then number 8 is a clone shot. That is very self-explanatory. If you don't know how to film a clone, we're going to do a really in-depth tutorial right now. When, say I'm like sitting here and my clone's going to be here, I need to give myself time to speak and then him time to speak. So typically I'll kind of act with myself and imagine that this person's already here. And so I'll typically be like, and that's when I realized my throat really hurts from talking so much. So like that kind of like acknowledgement kind of helps make it look more authentic. And then of course me here has to acknowledge him. And the next obviously is the long, medium, short combo, my bread and butter. And then we have a vlog shot. That's typically when you're just like holding the camera, so your hand will be something like this. I typically put this at the end of the videos, and I try to move around as much as possible just to kind of make them more visually engaging. But they're just a good way to kind of like talk to the camera while you're walking or doing something else. And then for screen recording shots, that's the best way to display a free resource, but you don't want your video to be like you talking, like doing all the storytelling, and then ruin it by having like 3 screenshots back to back to back. If they're done wrong, they can really hurt retention. Loops really work well for getting like a second view per person, because they'll be like, oh my god, like that was a cool loop. What I'll typically do is when I'm filming the hook, I'll start by filming the end. For example, it'll be like, and that's the end of lesson 1. Welcome to lesson 1. And it acts as like an ending rehook and almost offer to watch the video again and get you that like 100% watch time, which is what we want, and that kind of helps boost the overall score and retention graph. Not every video has to have a loop shot, but I try to include them when I can. Now 13 is an oddball out as like DIY shots. I mentioned the duct tape, the small rig, anything that is not very conventional and almost like thrown together because I feel like those are where the coolest shots come from. One of these, for example, is like a skateboard dolly shot of having your phone on a tripod and like pushing a skateboard away from you to have like a natural zoom out or zoom in effect. That's just something very cool you can do. So the more you kind of DIY shots, the more you train that muscle. The last one of the DIY shot is like a fake time lapse. If you ever want to show the passage of time, what I'll do is typically I call it like the rule of 3. So I want to be like, blah, 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 blah. I like move this over here so it looks like some time has passed. And I'll be like, for shot 3, just move and adjust. And even if you want to put on a hoodie or something, then you'd be like, and I kept doing work. That's a way to film a long period of time in about 30 seconds. Have fun with it, be creative, and kind of express and flex that creative muscle. Before you film anything, you have to know where you're going to shoot it, and this ties into storyboarding. And basically, the more engaging of a location you film in, the easier it will be for you to find the cinematic shots to do. To kind of rate the engagement of a location, we'll say like New York's a 10 because everyone wants to be there and see what's going on. Your room is a 1. So places that kind of lie like a 5 or a 6, like a nice park, a remotely busy town, just add that level of engagement because people get so scared to film outside that when they see someone film outside, they're even more inclined to be like, oh, this person's like fearless. And I was a very, very anxious person, and now I'm able to film in front of people all the time. Exposure therapy yourself to do. I still get nervous to this day, but it's just like, if the goal is to go viral, I'm going to be in front of millions of people. So this like, handful of 10 people that are looking at me weird means nothing compared to the hundreds of thousands I want to be looking at me weird. Also, videos filmed outside typically do better for the algorithm. So that's how storyboarding applies to actual filming. And not to jinx it, nothing has gone wrong this time. I will see you in the fabled module 3 of lesson 5. Welcome to the fabled module 3. I never thought I would get here, but I'm so excited to be. This is called cinematography, and that is just out of pure rage. What we'll go through in this lesson is the basic level of cinematography knowledge that I think you need to have in order to shoot videos at my level. First, you have to kind of think, whenever you want to make a video, is like, how are you going to shoot it? Not where, like we covered last time, but how. Like, what tools are at your disposal? Both these free resources will be under as well as my cinematic shots list. There is you can spend thousands of dollars on a camera and still have bad looking videos. That's why I started with my phone off the bat, because I just didn't have the money to invest as a freshly graduated college student to buy a camera that's multiple thousands of dollars, with lenses and everything like that. Go through this gear list, kind of see what you can afford. Tons of free ways to kind of work around the budget barrier. What I would say is that I'm going to hit 10K while just filming on my phone. One thing I want to do is like a 10K challenge of like for a month. If you're in a place where you're still working on, getting some money to like upgrade your equipment, what I would recommend is film on your phone, film a voiceover with your microphone like this, because this is going to be good enough audio quality, and you can run it like Adobe Podcast or something, which I'll include below. Good audio quality can mask if a video looks a little bit pixely. If the audio is good, for some reason, it just seems more polished. If you are using your phone, I have a complete walkthrough on how to make your phone look like this, and people are surprised when I tell them I just film on my phone. Apple has one called Final Cut Camera. I use Blackmagic because I just have all my presets on there. If you're using your phone, go through the tutorial and follow the instructions to import my LUTs and everything like that. Basically plug and play, like you turn on the preset that I use and it looks very, very similar. We're about to go over what each of these settings means, like shutter, aperture, and stuff like that, so you can kind of learn how to adjust it for what light you're at. Because one thing I would say is you want to make sure you're shooting a little bit like lighter, higher contrast. If you throw a LUT on there, color grade it a little bit, it will look good. I think people really underestimate the power of color grading and LUTs. Like you can make terrible, awful footage look like immaculate if you just know how to adjust like the blacks and the whites and make the contrast a little bit higher. Like the basic camera understanding is aperture of your camera is its eye. So high aperture is going to let in more light, so your video will be brighter. Less aperture is like the camera is squinting and letting a lot less light, so you're going to have kind of a darker focus. Shutter speed is how fast the camera is blinking, like how many pictures is it taking per second to capture this video. When you have a higher shutter speed, you're able to capture my hand, like, it's not as blurry. The lower your shutter speed is, the more blurry it will be. So if it was really slow shutter speed, like stop motion or something. The ISO is its sensitivity to light. So typically have your ISO at a lower number when you're outside and in natural light and like in a place that's already a little more vibrant. And then high ISO is when you're filming in the dark, or if you don't have a key light like me. I would try, if you're filming on your phone or even with your camera, try to refrain from really, really dark videos. Color grade if a clip is too dark, and there's been times when I've really had to reshoot entire videos because it's just been too dark. You could always make a video darker, but it's really hard to make a video lighter. That's kind of how I think about it. For a crash course in lighting, I got my first key light as a gift. If you don't understand lighting off the bat, that's completely fine. The first like 50 of my videos, I had no idea what lighting even meant or was supposed to do. First, you want to consider light sources you already do have. I'm in Jordan's office right now, and he has the exact same salt lamp that I use in my videos. I got it on clearance for like $10. And this all loops back to like the DIY aspect. You can DIY lighting pretty easily, flashlight or something. The only limit is really your creativity. And that's why I like cinematography so much, because if you're able to flex that cinematic muscle, you're going to be able to come up with cool shots very, very quickly and very, very frequently. And if you don't have a lamp or anything like that, go outside. Focus on times of day where the lighting's not going to change too much on you. So typically around 8 to 10 a.m., 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. will work great. And that 2 hours should give you enough time to get the entire video done. And then some actual like lighting rules to roughly follow. You'll see in a lot of my videos and throughout what I've explained in this course is I'm always experimenting and breaking my own rules in the pursuit of just seeing what works and what doesn't. So while I'm gonna say like shoot towards the shadow side, meaning like the lights here, so the camera's facing more towards the darker side of myself, how like side lighting makes you look more masculine, this and this and this, because then you have a lot of rougher edges, or how backlighting is good intentionally because you can kind of get like a little silhouette. If you're outside, you don't want the sun to be behind you because you're going to look really blown out and you want it more in your face. Especially when filming on iPhone, the front camera is not very good. But I'm always experimenting and kind of breaking my own rules to see what looks cool and what doesn't. And that just kind of goes into having fun with it. Again, like while there's rules to follow to make it look very professional and clean and put together, odds are that in your daily life you're not professional and clean and put together because we're just humans and we make mistakes. And some videos, like some of my favorite shots have come from me just like messing up really, really bad. Don't be scared to experiment. Like while these are really good places to start from, just see what works for you. Do multiple takes on your videos. When I'm filming, I'll typically say each line about 5 times. And that's so if I have a take where I don't like how I look or I don't like how I sound, like I'm not stuck with that one take and have to like get up and re-record and set everything up again. And I just have the option to pick and choose from the other 4 that I filmed. Sometimes I go up with like 10 or 15 takes per line, and you'll start to get this sense. You'll be like, yeah, that's the one, and like I'll stop. And for some reason, you start to know when you've done a good take, and then you can kind of keep moving on. The more you have to work with when editing when you're first starting out, the better. Like really do yourself that favor and have multiple takes, at least 3. And this is the last thing I'll mention on viewer comprehension, so you can finally lay that to rest. Instagram's AI scans your script, your caption, also the imagery in your video, and matches the imagery with similar content. Say I was talking about cameras, it would scan this tripod and be like, oh, he's making a video about cameras. I'm going to put it in front of an audience that's interactive with the same things. Just very simple stuff. Like even if it's something as simple as like, and then I drink water. Ta-da. You saw me drink water, so not the comprehension time. Final tip of the illustrious module 3 is that you always want to be moving at the start of each shot. And this is something that is actually very, very important. And this kind of acts as a visual rehook. We'll do a little social experiment. Which clip of me saying this is more engaging? Hello, I'm Jackson. Hello, I'm Jackson. Kind of goes into like the brain rot aspect, and this is how I do my take on clean brain rot. With brain rot visuals, everything's always moving. So we can kind of replicate this by either being really expressive by like talking with our hands, like I do. I naturally talk with my hands, so I'm very fortunate. And ever since I broke my mic and had to start doing voiceovers, it's been even more just me like flailing my arms about because I don't know what to do with them. You want to be either coming into frame, going out of frame. The more movement you have, the more retention you will have because you don't have to directly match the visuals with the story that you're telling. I did a video on a bike one time just to kind of see how that was. While the goal is to go viral, a lot of your videos won't, and that's okay because those reps that you're putting in, getting better and practicing and understanding all these little things, when it does all finally click and you make that video that you're really, really proud of and just all of the cinematography is on point, all the lighting is on point, the script is fantastic, it's going to feel so much more satisfying because you know exactly why it's good. That was lesson 5, module 3, and we're on to lesson 5, module 4. Hey, welcome to the final module of lesson 5. This is how to be natural on camera. The goal I have with every single one of my videos is to talk as authentically as possible. And I hope me doing this course Unscripted has shown you that I really do try to talk and use the same verbiage and be as authentic as possible within my scripts. My goal is to talk authentically. Sometimes you have to flub that intentionally to maintain the visual and scripted pace because there's this, again, a balance of authenticity and authority. And authority comes from being able to convey ideas really well and having really, really good story. Only talking an authentic voice and just kind of yapping, you might kind of lose this a little bit. Again, there's a balance, like all things with this course, there's a balance of how much you want to go in each direction. I would recommend probably a 50-50 split. And if you go off script too much or you talk too authentic, it might be hard to edit around or continue a transition. So really keep in mind how authentically you're talking. That's why I say to script in your tonality so you're already planning ahead for what you're going to say. Of course, like when I'm filming, I totally scrap entire lines like I mentioned before, and that's fine too. So one way to kind of calm your nerves before filming on camera is the shake. So it's like, I do that literally before every recording for about 30 seconds. Again, why are we taking an Instagram reel so seriously? To finally summarize what I've been saying over the last couple modules is just have fun with it. And then another way to kind of talk authentically and very casually is to act like the camera is your best friend. it's gonna be so much more natural to talk to. And of course, you're talking to a lens, and it's kind of weird to act like this is an actual person. But once you kind of, that's another part of the cinematography skill, the flex, is to be able to talk to the camera in a way that just seems just so casual. And it is a skill you will build up over time. And this will help on like meetings too. Really like envisioning someone you care about holding the camera just helps a ton. And then this is very, very helpful. I was told my entire life that I talk too fast. And I used to do rap when I was in middle school, so I can really articulate my words quite fast. One thing is that if you want to fit a lot of story into under 60 seconds, which is the golden ratio of where the video should be at, and we'll talk about that more on the technical side with editing, what I say is you kind of want to talk at like 1.5 speed. And of course, like this is not applicable for every line. Like if you have a very emotional line, when you're really spamming information, or typically the takeaway or in the backstory, if I'm trying to like reestablish myself. 10 days ago, I dropped out of college, and like you kind of can use the captions as a crutch if you're having a hard time pronunciating. But the faster you can talk, the better. It's going to be a little more engaging, and you're going to still want to be talking authentically and like slower at times. In our pursuit of this ever-changing curve, some parts are really fast and some parts a lot slower. And like I just said here, some moments are totally okay. Sometimes you want to let something hit. I used to really make a mistake on this, is I would have like this big epiphany emotional moment, but I would just keep going. I wouldn't give it any time to land with the audience. What's been shoved down your throat by a lot of people is, oh, you need to film for retention, edit like brain rot and stuff. But sometimes not doing that and letting the videos actually land, the emotional moments actually land, will have such a better impact on how your content feels. Because once you kind of hook people in with maybe a more fastly edited hook, if you slow down their pace, they're already in your video. And if you're doing all the things we've talked about, they're going to stay there. That's the end of lesson 5, cinematography, and I will see you in lesson 6 for editing. Look how big my hand looks. Hey, welcome to lesson 6, editing. This is all about the foundations of editing. And the next module will be more of the technical stuff, but I think it's best to start with a fundamental understanding of editing, so that when you do spend hours and hours and hours and you're deliberately making decisions. The first section is all about B-roll. You want an abundance. I have a giant folder full of B-roll, probably thinking, well, I haven't filmed anything. In my opinion, that's not true. Well, I haven't maybe filmed something directly for a video. You've been on camera before in your entire life, and those videos, especially ones from your childhood or even a few years ago, are so valuable as people trying to have good viewer comprehension, is because when I say 5 years ago, I can show a video of me from 5 years ago. And really, you can pull these from a ton of different places. Your photo album is a great place to start. There's probably tons of videos of you in there, from depending on how many videos you take. Like Google Photos is a place where I had like a bunch of old footage of myself from like middle school and stuff. Depending on your age, Snapchat could be a great place for this. I found like 70 videos of myself just being a stupid kid. And asking your friends and family, they probably have some silly videos of you from when you were a kid or even recently. All the VHS footage you see in my videos was from my grandma. What I did is kind of ransack everywhere I knew a video of me existed, and then just started compiling them and sorting them into a B-roll folder, so that when I'm editing, it's super easy to drag and drop something from a month ago, 5 years ago. You'll notice as we continue that everything we're doing here is kind of setting it up so that editing goes as fast as possible. The more you edit, the more you'll understand how long it can take and why we're so desperately trying to speed it up. Now, after you've gotten your B-roll folder, you need to select a software. There are like hundreds of editing softwares out there, but the 4 main ones I have listed on screen are CapCut, Premiere Pro, After Effects, and DaVinci Resolve. DaVinci Resolve and CapCut are free, but what I use is Premiere Pro. You can edit good videos on any single platform. What I would recommend is picking the platform that's easiest for you. I use Premiere Pro because I've been using it for forever, but if you want to start, like I said, there's so many editing softwares. My strongly worded advice is that when you are picking one, you pick one that gives you enough creative freedom, so that when you're doing your competitor analysis and you see a cool shot you want to replicate, you're only limited by your skill and not the confines of the program. And lastly is the fundamental breakdown of learning how to edit. And you don't need to be a pro to make great videos. The goal is value per second, which I've already touched on, because this is where you put together the story, clean visuals, and have that high viewer comprehension. So as long as you're editing with that in mind, you don't need to have all these fancy effects to have a really, really strong viral video. Edit as fast as possible, as good as possible. So we edit fast by being fluent in like the program we're using and also having good keybinds. Keybinds are something that I incorporated when I started doing short form, and they have literally been a game changer. Instead of having to move my finger every single time I want to make a cut, I can just press a button now. Whatever software you choose, looking at the most optimal keybinds is a really, really big help and will save you a ton of time. And we'll get into like what all this means in the more nitty gritty, but learning how to sequence, learning how to add text for captions, and then basic keyframing for any zooming you want to do. I do believe zooming to be like a staple of a quality video. There's going to be a time when you want the viewer to focus on one thing rather than the entire screen. And all this to say is that we're not going for brain rot, like overstimulation editing. We're really going for clean, story-driven content. So if you can edit for like a nice pacing and in a simple style that works for you. I know I mentioned this before, but like you don't want to start out with your editing up here, because that's going to become the expectation for people who follow you. So the more replicable you make your editing style, the better. This is shorter, so you can just kind of get a basic understanding of what editing really is supposed to be. So I just want to make the shorter module so you can understand the principles of why you're learning to edit in the first place. Hey, welcome to lesson 6, module 2. This is the 5 steps of editing. I've been saying for the entire course that there's a formula, and this is mainly where the formula lies. I know my editing seems super creative, which it is, but there is a sequence and a formula to how I edit in order to maintain that quality each and every time, and that's something I'm going to share with you now. And this is something I said to make sure you know how to do when you're picking the software. If you had an automatic captions app and knew how to sequence, you could really pump out as many videos as you wanted. So that's why it's step 1. It's the most important step in my opinion. So this is basically adding any LUTs and color grading, and again, link below will be on my LUTs. When color grading, you don't need to be I don't use any fancy tools. I literally just kind of tweak the contrast and exposure. I think of color grading as like iPhone plus, so make the way you would edit an Instagram post kind of like that. So it's never anything that's going to require hours and hours per clip. The goal of sequencing is to get your video ready for captions. Just have that in mind as you do it. I know storytelling creators who use just B-roll, so it's a very, very powerful tool for storytelling, like I said, because of that viewer comprehension. However, when you have A-roll, which would be this, like me directly talking to the camera, you can see my lips moving. When you're putting in B-roll, you want to string it together so that doesn't feel random. If I put in a random clip of me right now and then I went back to A-roll really, really quickly, it would feel almost out of place. So I try to string together 2 or 3 B-roll clips depending on what I'm using. That's to help settle the B-roll into the footage. Step 4 is J-cuts, L-cuts, and hard cuts. And these are your 3 main things. A J-cut is when the audio of a clip starts before a transition. An L-cut is the opposite. And then hard cuts are just what they sound like, just hard cuts between 2 lines, 2 story points, whatever it may be. The final step of sequencing, meaning that there's all the J-cuts, L-cuts, hard cuts. Everything's really been stringed together. There's B-roll in little sections. And at this stage, there should be no clip greater than 5 seconds. And 5 seconds still can feel a little long depending on what's going on. While we're not making brain rot videos, we still have to adhere to the people whose attention spans are cooked. That is a large majority of our audience. And then the last step of sequencing is the voiceover. And a lot of people didn't know I did this, but I use this mic right here. Essentially, I broke my mic a while ago, and I was so annoyed that I just never bought a new one. So I just started using this mic I already had to do voiceovers. It's this weird like voice acting skill almost. I listen to what the iPhone footage sounds like, and then I just do the voiceover with my mic. I've come to really like the voiceover because I can use more emotion and variate my tone post-production rather than having to rely on one good take and using the handheld mic. And step 2 is the last layer of polishing unique shots. After this, the only editing you're going to be doing is sound design and the caption. So there's not a ton of heavy editing that you're doing within this stage. It just might take you a while to chop everything down to make sure the pace is nice. One thing that I do, every single clip either has a zoom in or a zoom out, and it's kind of that alternating pattern. The hook is always zooming in, like I mentioned. Throughout the entirety of the video, there's always a slight zoom in or out, and that just helps make static shots more engaging. This is the stage where I edit any fancy shot I have up on the screen here. I said like I was so burnt out and I was on like a frying pan. Typically, this is the stage where you'd have to learn how to mask. For beginners, I'd recommend staying away from masking as much as possible because it is still my least favorite part of an editing thing just because of how tedious and how long it takes. A lot of master creatives never even use this. If you're going to mask something out, setting behind a white background or a green screen is your best bet. Then you put yourself anywhere you want without having to mask. Every pro editor I talk to is always like avoid masking at all costs because of how hard it is to make it look good. Unique shots are super, super good, but my best tip is making unique shots that don't require a lot of editing or are more natively visually appealing. Step 3 is captions. I get asked so much how I do my fancy captions, but more recently I realized that those may be hurting retention because I've had complaints from a lot of people saying they're almost too distracting and it feels overwhelming. And I noticed the most viral videos in this storytelling niche have very, very simple captions, typically right in the center. And after doing enough competitor analysis, I realized that's for a reason. That's how you get the most legible video because again, 80% of people listen with the volume off. 1 to 3 words max on screen at a time, unless it's like the title or important key info. Then I do up to 5. You want the caption centered as much as possible without covering your face. And so I have both the style here. I have my like title style where it's stacked, and then I have just like the simple line captions. I would say a little bit smaller than you think is probably the size to go with because you want the captions to feel integrated and not distracting. The rule of thumb that I use is that large text is used for the hook, a series title, or major keywords. Small text would be, like I said, for quick explanation. If you're talking very, very fast, you don't want a bunch of large text blared on the screen at a time. This is also where you would use your brand colors to interchange anything. So if you have like a keyword, you could also change the color of that from white or whatever it is into one of your brand colors. And then lastly is my style of captions. And if you choose Premiere when you pick your software, you can have access to all of my caption effects for free because I've made presets for them and they'll be under this video. But the first one's like my puzzle piece effect with the word slide in. That's super, super simple keyframing. Another reason that I said to learn keyframing on any platform you're using. And then I have the wavy effect. That's literally just a native Premiere effect called wave warp. And then the Go style of caption is just opacity and then difference. But when you're first starting out, it's okay just to learn simple caption style because that is typically what you'll use for the majority of your videos. This kind of goes back to module 1, but any special text effects can be learned through an online tutorial if you have a specific use case. Step 4 is sound design. This is something that had the biggest learning curve for me, even though I've been editing for around 5 or 6 years. And I break this into 2 parts, with music for pace being the harder part, and then sound effects being a bit easier part because they're kind of simple to understand. But I have up here, I typically use 5 to 6 songs per video, and you guys have access to my music library that I'm continuously adding to, but I switch songs every 5 to 10 seconds. It's really hard to find one song that exactly matches the tone of what you're saying throughout the entire video, because remember, through our scripting, through our shooting, we're having these emotional highs and lows. The seamlessly is by, so I'll end a song with a snap sound effect or something like that to make the ending definite, and now typically it's at the start of a new pain point, so this is where we get into the idea of letting things hit, and I also emphasize this hit by adding one. That hit will fade away, and as the hit fades away, we'll go into a riser. Again, you guys have access to all my sound effects, and that riser will be accompanied by a whoosh at its peak, and then you'll start into the second song. And 9 times out of 10, this will be enough to make a song feel integrated and have a very seamless transition. Other 1 time out of 10 is if a song has an interesting opening by itself, just finding a way to creatively work that into your own video. One song I use for a lot for like the storytelling feel is Michael Jackson's Don't Stop Till You Get Enough. It has this clicking sound at the start. Whenever I put like a clock sound effect, I'll have the clock kind of count in the beginning of that song so it feels a little more seamless. So it's just stuff like that. The artist's intention for a song, odds are if you're using a song that's popular enough, the artist took the time and have the dedication to already have a hook of a song, a bridge of the song, and an outro of a song. So you can really take those components that are already pre-made to be where they are in the song and take whatever section and match it to your video. So the hook of a song, the hook of your video, the middle of the song, the backstory. And this will save you a lot of time when choosing the music for each song because the artist has already done most of the work for you. First song always ends at the hook. This is just to make sure you're building anticipation. And that's why it's so important to know the entire pipeline of creation. Whenever I'm writing, I'm kind of anticipating these editing tricks that you're learning right now. I have this as a separate thing because the tone of the song is really important. You wouldn't put happy birthday over like a super somber moment. You want to match the emotion of the song to the emotion that you're talking about. And then for sound effects, this is actually the easier half of sound design. There's 3 types of sound effects. In my opinion, sound effects fall into 3 categories, which would be match sounds, ambient sounds, and funny sounds. So starting with match sounds, the example I have is I make content for anyone who's struggling to become a creator. The word content would have a mouse click sound effects, and then creator would have like a flash sound effect. There's typically more sound effects on the first half of your video rather than the end. Sound effects for me act as more of a mechanism for keeping people engaged. That's why there's more at the start rather than the end. The point is to get your point across while still being clean and not having like overwhelming sound design. I've worked with a couple of people who started editing and they just kind of overdo it with the sound design and it almost takes away from what they're saying. And in general, the goal of this style is clean storytelling. Having a muddled soundtrack is going to harm that more than anything. The type of sound design that I like the most is ambient sound design. This makes anything feel more cinematic. Think about movies, they have so much intentional sound design to really bring you into that world. And something I realized is that the more sound design you have in your videos, the more you bring people in. So, if I'm opening a door, I'm going to play the opening door sound effect. If my hand's moving really fast, we're going to have a whoosh. Such an area to be creative. Typically, the order that I do is match sound effects, then ambient sound effects. And then lastly, funny sound effects. Because of my demographic and the tone of my videos and the authority I want to have, I use funny sound effects. They're really good for having a little more humor in your videos. We're trying to be more authoritative. Too many funny sound effects can harm you, so be a little more sparing. So taking a sound effect from a popular meme or trend and using that will help kind of connect you to that trend without you deliberately being on it. If you want a good middle ground, Minecraft sound effects seem to be infinitely applicable. Like I know really high authority creators that still reference Minecraft, and there seems to be no penalty for that. Probably because it's the largest game ever made. I think one of my most used sound effects is the Minecraft armor equip sound effect because it's just so widely applicable. And whenever I'm like, I grab something, I'll play like the... And the last step is exporting, and this gets us into the 4K uploading template you have below. I have the export settings for 4K on this template, but for whatever you use, there's definitely a YouTube video explaining how to get 4K uploads out of whatever software you're using. But when you export your video in 4K, which is what we want, file size will be way too big for Instagram video. I've had video files that are like 60 seconds and 6 gigabytes, so that's just not going to work. So that's why I use a free tool called Handbrake. And what Handbrake is able to do is compress the video at a 4K level into something that is much smaller, but still looks like it's 4K on Instagram. So if you use the settings that I have in here, having the video quality to 10 and the aspect ratio to 1080 by 1920, you'll have that 4K look to your videos, which can make your videos look better than people who are even shooting on these like super high quality cameras. And then this last step, this was included in module 1 with the secret Instagram settings. Whenever you go to post, make sure you're going to more options and ensuring that upload at the highest quality is toggled on. Then make sure you're uploading with Wi-Fi, not your cellular data. iPhone videos look even better than someone who has a few $1,000 camera because if they don't have these settings on, that high quality footage won't even be able to be processed by Instagram. So I would say the best way to learn this is the next time you're editing, just go through the 5 steps and continue to repeat that on every single rep and improve. And the more you'll do it, the more fluent you'll get. Then once you get fluid enough, you'll be able to develop your own style. I know editing can seem really daunting, but so if you have any questions about anything we've covered through all of these guides, please put them in the community. If you have a question about something, the odds are that someone else definitely has a question about it or something similar. Thanks for watching lesson 6.